You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will talk some NFL football coming up an hour from now. Ryan Tracy will be our guest. Locked On Chiefs podcast, RGR Football. We'll get his thoughts on some of the things going on with the Kansas City Chiefs, less than a month away from the Chiefs heading to St. Joe for training camp. It will be here before you know it. We know that. I feel like it was just a month ago it was late May. It feels like it was just a month ago. Like it was May 27th, like almost a month ago. That's what it feels like.
I'd love to join you on that bit, but May 27th, I was in some foreign country, so that feels like a year ago minimum to me.
So you were on your honeymoon a month ago.
A month ago.
That's how close, that feels like it was just yesterday. And that's how close we are to the Chiefs. Less than that, Chiefs being in training camp. So it's right around the corner. We will talk with Ryan Tracy. One of the things that we'll talk about is the article that Bill Barnwell wrote at ESPN, where he ranked the skill positions 1 through 32 in the NFL. And looking at that compared to what Trevor Sikkema at Pro Football Focus did, because they're both using wide receiver, tight end, and running back. They're bringing in the entire skill position. So Pro Football Focus, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when Trevor Sikkema included Travis Kelce and included Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. And so Bill Barnwell has done the same thing. We'll talk to him, Ryan Tracy, about those things there with the Chiefs and a few others with Ryan Tracy. Also, coming up at noon, we will hang out with Les Norman, breaking the norm. Les Norman, our Tuesday guest from noon to 1. We will talk with Les Norman about this Royals team, some positives maybe that are happening with this Royals team. They return home tonight. They've got a 3-game set against the Guardians, 3 against the Dodgers. And with the Dodgers' great farm system and need for bullpen, it would seem like a very easy connection coming up on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday just to exchange some jerseys with Barlow and Chapman over to the visiting clubhouse while some minor league players go from whatever team they're with to either Northwest Arkansas or Omaha or maybe Quad Cities. I don't know, depending on the level of prospect and the hope, the what will be 5 years from now, us discussing what happened to that guy. That's too negative right out of the gate. Sorry, I don't want to do that. That's too negative.
Sad.
Yeah, that is too sad. But the 3-game set with the Guardians starting tonight and then the Dodgers. But we'll talk with Les Norman about some Royals things and then connect it also to what we saw last night with the College World Series, Game 3, deciding game. And then July 9th is the Major League Baseball draft. Royals with the 8th pick in the draft, and we'll see who they end up getting, and will that even matter? Also coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll talk with Sterling Holmes. He'll hang out with us because Todd Lebo has refused to talk with us in the 1 o'clock hour because he's like, I'm hosting the program for Seren Petro today, and I'm doing 4 hours, so I don't want to come in at 1 o'clock and hang out with you till 2 and then do a 4-hour show because I don't really like to work.
You guys could have just switched seats. You could have just been Curtis for the day, and he could have just swapped with you at the end of the show.
Would have been perfect.
You want to start negative? Last night I was thinking, Jack Caglione does seem like a Royal tonight. That was my concern.
Yeah. Don't worry. They won't have a high enough pick.
You're probably right.
They're going to play 600 ball the rest of the way and get the 5th worst record.
Which actually could get them a top 2 pick, I think. I'm not sure.
Not happening.
No.
No, they're not. They're going to do the old win 3 games at the end of the regular season and get the number 2 pick, and the Orioles get the number 1 pick by 1 game, and they take Adley Rutschman. Now the Royals got Bobby Witt, so I don't know where would Adley Rutschman be playing right now because
he would be a right fielder.
Can't play catcher.
He'd be a right fielder in Omaha right now.
That's waiting for he may not be. Honestly, he may not be Adley Rutschman. So 913-912-48. Well, he would
made him change his name. Yeah,
still be named Adley Rutschman, just not the guy.
All right, son. Right, first thing here, we need you to change your name to Bobby Witt. What?
What do you think about? What do you think about Radley Ushman.
Ooh, Radley.
Radley Ushman.
Radley Oshman. You got to
Radley Ushman.
keep that A over there.
You like that name?
He'd be actually, that time he'd be Radley AA Ushman, which is where he would be.
Ushman. But he would be at high AA.
Yeah,
because
for
I
sure.
just invented a new minor league for the Royals.
Got to make sure you get those reps in.
AA and then AA+. The Royals have created. That's where Asa Lacy is, apparently. He's in AA+, which is just in Arizona, maybe.
Asa Lacy's in one of those, like, what are those little, he's in 6V right now. If we got AA, single A, triple A, we got like a watch battery for Asa Lacy right now.
Asa Lacy is right now in a time capsule that they buried 2 years ago, and 20 years from now they'll go and unbury it and go, oh yeah, I remember when we buried the Asa Lacy jersey. That's cool.
I remember when we buried this Eddie Lacy jersey. Is that what his name was?
Which Lacy? Is it somebody named Lacy? Was it the first name Lacy? I'm not sure.
I think I had my only other Lacy that I could think of there. I think I'm done at one. You know, his middle name is Darwin, not Asa, Eddie.
Oh. Good to know.
Survival of the fattest.
Okay. 913-912-4810. College World Series last night. Fact or fiction coming up at the 1 o'clock hour. College World Series last night. Disappointing end to the what had been just an amazing tournament in Omaha. It was great. And even Saturday's game, which was LSU winning 4-3 in extra innings. And then it heads to Sunday, and then last night. This was the stat that was going around last night. I don't know if you saw this with the first 14 games compared to the last two. The first 14 games in Omaha were decided by a total of 28 runs.
Good Lord.
The last two games were decided by 34 runs. It was absolutely point, counterpoint. It was Florida going, touche, sir. Touche, our bad for running up the score last night. Maybe we should not have done that. That would have been wiser for us to not do that. Because on Sunday, we didn't even talk about it yesterday because I didn't know that it would come up last night. But we didn't talk about it yesterday. Then on Sunday, Florida was still doing the quote-unquote unwritten rules of baseball. They were up by like 15 and they stole second. They were up by 18 and there was a fly ball to right field with a runner at second and he tagged up and went to third. They were doing those things against LSU. And guess what LSU was doing last night in the 7th and 8th inning? Tagging up, taking the extra base, doing all those things.
The World Series, guys.
Right. Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I'm okay with it too. For the most part, the one thing that would worry me because I'm a worrywart, is, you got your starters out there, you're up by 18 runs if you're Florida, and you're still stealing bases. I just see a finger popping when you go to second base. You see that, and now the guy's out the next day. It's like, well, you're up 18. Maybe just stay at first.
Sure.
Maybe just get to the end of this game and get to tomorrow because LSU ain't throwing any arms that they care about right now. They ain't putting anybody out there that they would need for tomorrow. They're just they're throwing Josh Brisco out there.
And my arm is falling off right now.
That's right. And so then last night, LSU was doing the same thing, and I thought, good for them. Good for them. I didn't think it would come up last night because of the pitchers that were going to be on the mound. And when the wind is blowing out in Omaha, which it was doing Sunday and last night, the balls are going to fly, and that's what happened. So it was a disappointing ending to what had been just an absolute fun tournament there in Omaha. I wish you could flip the 3-game set between LSU and Florida. Could you have game 1 be LSU winning like they did last night? Game 2 be Florida winning like they did on Sunday. And then game 3, the 4-3 extra innings walk-off to win the game for LSU. Even if it's the same result, whatever, LSU wins. But, man, how amazing would last night have been if it was just that, 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, extra innings, boom, walk-off, game winner, LSU wins it, that would have been the drama of going to the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, all of that with those two teams tied one apiece in the World Series would have been great. But as it is, that was really the last drama of the entire tournament. But
it's part of what made the end of the World Baseball Classic so interesting before the MLB season. You got that incredible payoff, and it was Trout, Ohtani, and all of that tension. And it being a fascinating series and a great final matchup for all of the prospects, all the things we talked about. Great matchup and all, but it did lose just a little bit of that pop. But if you could just reorder those games, you could have had another World Baseball Classic. Hey, get to your TV. It's the top of the 10th kind of moments. That would have been a lot of fun.
And Florida comes out, and the number 3 pick in the draft on July 9th hits the 2-run shot. And it's like, okay, Florida is continuing their offense from yesterday. How quickly are they going to have to put Paul Skeens out there? How quickly is he going to go out there and have to pitch? Because this thing could get out of hand quickly. And it did not. And then Caglione lost it. And I tweeted out last night, the college baseball bullpen,
this is a great point,
is fascinating because Major League Baseball, the bullpen guys start the game hanging out there, right? They're just hanging out there in the bullpen, and the game starts, they're just chilling. In college baseball, like, everybody's in the dugout, and then eventually the guys head down to the bullpen. It's one thing when you're struggling, Josh, in a game, and you sort of turn around and you see there's some movement in the bullpen. You're like, all right, they're making the phone call. It's another thing when Caglione is on the mound in the second inning, and he's just walked 2 guys and hit a batter, and Florida sends 3 guys sprinting down to the bullpen.
Flying V to
from
the bullpen.
the dugout, just running. Bullpen coach, bullpen catcher.
Swinging their arm as they go.
3 pitchers, cartwheels for some reason. They're doing karaoke to get stretched out.
Yes.
Doing the Mario jumps, getting stretched out so they can go down and be ready to pitch. And then it's like, Caglione's like, no, I'm fine, guys. Thank you for the trust in me. No, it's good. I'll find it. I'll get it. I know you guys have total trust in me. I'll get this for you. It's got to be extra unnerving and unsettling to see 4 guys jump out of the dugout and just start running as fast as they can down to the dugout after you hit a man with the 3rd guy that you gave a free pass to in the second inning.
Dylan, I don't want you to get antsy about this, but if you mishandle a break or anything, I'm going to go screaming down the hallway, just Marco! Wait, Marco! I hope he can't actually hear me right now because that'd be really disorienting for him, I'm sure.
He'd be running in like, what is going on?
Hey, you're good.
Adam! Is Adam here?
Is anybody here?
Adam!
Please!
Adam's Paul Skeens. Adam! Come on in. We know you just ran 4 hours yesterday, but come on in. You got to do extra work today.
I need you to carry me, Adam.
They go to the 15-10 room and start practicing the buttons. They're stretching.
That's right. You got to get the finger, pop your knuckles.
That's right.
Stretches in.
They're sitting down, standing up, sitting down in their chair, standing up, sitting down. They're spinning to the right, spinning to the left, doing some of those things.
Fire the brake, pod up.
I think I'm ready to go. I think I'm ready to go, Coach. We call down to the 15-10 room. Hey, you guys ready to go?
But it really would be more like you turning around
Waving
and
the
just
towel.
banging on the glass behind you.
Knocking.
Just send whatever you got.
Anybody.
This dude's arm is falling off. He's going to
got
kill
the
a
phone.
guy.
You got the phone right next to
Right
you.
here.
You're right. Yeah, we got the Foley working.
Yeah, who we got up right now? Anybody? We got anybody ready to go right now?
Is there a warm body down there?
Somebody.
Dylan
anybody.
is sweating.
Give me somebody. Give me anybody. Give me anybody now.
So how do you come and take the ball? Like, would we take
Headphones.
the break?
I'll take the
Okay,
headphones off your
headphones,
head.
that's right.
I'll just stand behind you, just eerily, and then I'll just reach over, grab each headphone cup, and then just raise them off.
He takes the headphones off and hands them to you.
you're right.
You slap him on the ass while he walks out.
That's a great point. That's exactly what.
And
it
then
be.
and then he walks out like the like typical pitchers do. He walks out, walking head down, takes his hat off and sort of wipes his brow, looks above the third deck, sort of like
to the
not
sky.
looking at the crowd and just and then at that point, once you get past the third base or first base line, you're just staring at the ground as you walk into the dugout. A couple little fist bumps and then right down the tunnel.
Straight into the clubhouse, never to be seen again.
Right down the hallway to whatever cubby is back there.
That's pretty much exactly how I think it would go, both for every pitcher and for Dylan in particular. I think it would be, I think he might, the only tweak I might make is that I think Dylan might walk out into the studio and just straight off the balcony.
That might be accurate, yes.
Never breaking the stoicness. Just fully straight face. Just Joffrey in Game of Thrones.
God. Or whatever the GIF is that's out there that of the guy in the boardroom conference.
I can't
conference
remember what
room
that
or whatever.
one's from. But yeah, it'd be that.
I'm
It
not
would
sure
be exactly
what that
that.
was, what that's from. So that's my major takeaway last night is, seeing the pitchers, running as fast as they can down to the dugout or down to the bullpen, out of the dugout. But look, LSU is extremely, extremely talented. We know that. Kylie McDaniel, who we have on here on the show, and we'll be having Kylie McDaniel on soon because the draft in just a couple of weeks. He tweeted this out before the College World Series, and he wanted to compare LSU's roster to Major League Baseball's entire farm systems of teams.
Yeah.
And he ranked the 30 farm systems and then put LSU where they would fit in with just their roster. Now, mind you, the higher the player is in the prospect rankings, the bigger boost you get. Like,
Sure.
Ellie De La Cruz being the number 1 overall prospect before he graduated is a major bump for a prospect farm system, okay, for a team's organizational farm system. So that's right out of the gates. When you've got Skeens and Cruz, those two guys, that they're going to have a massive head start on some teams. But you've also got draft picks after draft picks after draft picks and international free agents and development over the years as opposed to the just simply Tigers roster. The Tigers roster versus an entire farm system ranked. You want to guess where LSU came in?
Yeah,
ranked.
because you're basically.
I mean, it's not top 10.
You're
Okay,
taking-
it's not
no, no,
it's not
no.
something extreme like that.
It can't be, but it also feels insane that this is gonna not be 31st.
It's not 31st.
So
I'll tell you that much.
That's crazy. I'm gonna say
It's not top 10. It's not 31st.
I'm gonna say 24th.
24th. Dylan, what would you guess LSU's team would be ranked according to Kylie McDaniel of all Major League Baseball's entire farm systems?
21st.
21st? 24th? 21st. It's really good by both of you. LSU would actually come in ranked 25th.
Wow. All right. Hey, we're right there.
Right
that feels
there,
all right
yes.
for us. Which
25th.
is also bleeping crazy.
Yeah, the Royals come in 28th.
I knew it was better than the Royals.
So if
I
the
knew
Royals'
that.
entire farm system exchanged with LSU, they would rank higher than what they do right now, according to one person, Kylie McDaniel, who I think is pretty good when it comes to the prospects and the drafts and farm systems and
nuts,
things like that.
man.
That's how talented that LSU team is. And they've got some draft picks for next year, too.
That would be a great, completely ludicrous truth serum question for JJ Piccolo. Just to be like, hey, and really any MLB GM, just because it's more about LSU than it is like the Royals. But this idea that you would just wholesale just ship out your entire farm system to inherit the roster of the LSU Tigers is a crazy thing.
Would you do it right now?
Oh yeah, probably.
Yes, I would too.
Yeah. How could you? I mean, because my only hang up is that you do like want to actually fill out your entire farm system, and you can do
That's
that.
fine.
You can do that.
You got a draft coming up. You got
Yeah.
international free agents. You got you can make some trades with other teams, other guys that are in independent league baseball.
Yes.
Monarchs players.
Yes, really.
You can find players to where you can fill out the roster. Guys being DFA'd and then they're just out of baseball. So you can do some of those things, but immediately you would have the number 1 and 2 picks in the draft this year on your team.
That might be enough to get it done. If you think about it, like in terms of what you actually hold on to that preciously in the farm system right now.
If you're saying what, this team, what you want to have, moving forward, if you said that you would have next year, let's go with Salvi at catcher, Prado at first, Vinny's your DH, Massey at second, Bobby Witt at short, Garcia at third, Cruz in center field, Melendez and Drew Waters in some way, shape, or form. You wouldn't trade Barlow and Chapman because, you feel like you can maybe compete next year. Your starting staff would be Daniel Lynch and Skeens and maybe, Brady Singer, Lynch, Skeens, those guys. Maybe Chris Bubich
eventually,
when he comes back next year. As opposed to like, well, you know what? Maybe Gavin Cross You know what, Kyle Isbell, they optioned Nate Eaton to AAA. Maybe Isbell's, making his return tonight. So we'll see what he can do. Maybe like I don't know, like a Bolin or some of these other guys.
Hey, remember Eddie Lacy?
Yeah, I mean it would. Would Eddie Lacy have a better chance of making the big league club with the Royals than Asa Lacy does?
No,
right
I
now?
believe in Asa Lacy.
Do you?
No, more than Eddie Lacy though. He's been out of the league for a while.
I hope we look back in 2 years and go, man, I can't believe Asa Lacy's doing this in the big leagues because he was all but lost, and somehow he's here.
And you, Josh, you never lost hope.
You're the only one.
You might be the one.
Even Asa Lacy lost hope. Even the Lacy family, the Royals organization, they all lost hope. You, Josh, you were the only one that did not.
I think the next time the Royals are in the playoffs, I think Asa Lacy is their game one starting pitcher, and I think Adalberto Mondesi's leading off.
Oh, my God.
Did you see that story from, I don't know, it's been a couple weeks at this point.
Sox?
Red Sox being like, yeah, they're just kind of waiting to edge up his workload a little more still.
Where is Mondesi at? He's just nowhere to be found. He's hanging out with Asa Lacy. He's in Arizona hanging out.
Time capsule.
Hanging out with Lacy. It would be a very short-term trade, not a long-term view when you're saying you trade the entire farm system for LSU's roster because you're getting Cruz and Skeens immediately. And you're saying, well, this is a guy that's a frontline starter and a premier center fielder, which you need, and Drew Waters can be a corner outfielder. And at least you feel like you got an ace on your staff. And then guys you already have at the big league level to fill in the other roster spots. Long term, though, you'd want to take the more lottery tickets that are there. I don't know what LSU's entire roster is going to look like, how many of those guys are going to make it to the big leagues.
Absolutely.
They have 2 potential superstars. And then they've got some good players that are there. Some good players that are still going to be drafted in second round, third round next year. A couple of guys. The guy that started last night's not. I don't think he's draft eligible. Maybe he is. Transfer from UCLA. But they got a couple of sophomores that are going to be in the draft next year. So they've got some good players. But not everybody drafted is going to make it to the big leagues. See, Royals.
Yeah.
And some other teams, not just the Royals, because the Royals have Prado and Melendez and Singer and Lynch and Witt and Vinny Pasquantino and Massey. And so, it is unfair to be like, well, the Royals draft guys that don't make it to the big leagues. They do, and that's why their farm system is ranked as low as it is, because they've had a ton of the high-end guys that have graduated. If Prado and Vinny and Bobby Witt and Massey were all still in the minor league system, they wouldn't be ranked 28th. But when you graduate them all, you're going to have a step back. When the Reds and Orioles graduate the rest of their guys, I don't think they'll be in the top 10, but if they keep loading, when the Orioles have 10 different guys that have either made their debut this year, last year, or in the minor leagues that have all been in the top 100 of Major League Baseball prospects last year or this year, eventually those 10 guys are either going to be traded because the trade deadline's coming up, or they're going to be up with the big league club. Jordan Westberg made his debut last night. Grayson Rodriguez has already made his debut. He's been up and down. Gunnar Henderson started the year with the Orioles. Adley Rutschman started the year, came up last year with the Orioles. He was the number 1 prospect last year. Gunnar Henderson, the number 1 prospect at the beginning of this year. Jackson Holliday, now the number 1 prospect in baseball with Ellie De La Cruz going up to the big leagues. That means in the last 2 years, the Orioles have had 1, 2, 3 different guys that at some point have been the number 1 prospect in all of baseball.
Crazy.
Now, Jackson Holliday was the number 1 pick in the draft. Adley Rutschman was the number 1 pick in the draft. So you would hope you would get some of those things right. But, they're about to graduate Colton Cowser. He's going to come up to the big league club for the Orioles. He's the number 15 prospect in all of baseball. Heston Kjerstad is the number 40 prospect in all of baseball. He might be a trade chip, so you would lose him. Norby and Kobe Mayo and other guys they have in the minor leagues that are top 100 prospects, they may lose depending on how much they're willing to invest because they're graduating a number of guys, and they've got guys at the big league level, and they've got guys left that their farm system might be just destroyed, like the Royals was in 14 and 15. It was worth it. They won a World Series.
Yeah.
That might be the Orioles. It might be the Reds because the Reds have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other prospects in the top 100 with McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, and Andrew Abbott at the big league club, who all started the year in the top 100. They've got 5 more guys in the top 100. Excuse me. 6 more guys.
Good Lord.
My bad. 6 more guys in the top 100. And they are position stacked like the Royals were. They have Encarnacion Strand, who's a first baseman, third baseman. Noel Marte is a shortstop, third baseman. Edwin Arroyo is a shortstop. Cam Collier's the third baseman, and Sal Stewart's a third baseman. Well, they've got McClain and Ellie De La Cruz on the left side for the next 10 years, maybe. There's your shortstop and your third baseman. And they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in the top 100 that are third baseman or shortstops. In the Reds, those are the guys that they'll look to move.
Do they need any hard-throwing relief rentals?
I know, right? They have a decent bullpen.
It's really too bad.
Yes, I know, but you can always use more. So
Always.
those farm systems are going to be picked apart when you graduate and you're in a position to go and make some trades and try to compete. I do want to take a time out, and I want to compare July 9th, the MLB draft, to the Chiefs. And I'm going to bring this up with Les Norman coming up in the noon hour as well, because there's a level of confidence when the Chiefs draft. Some of it's Brett Veach, some of it's just in general. There's a higher level of pessimism when the Royals draft. And I want to look at both of those and see the connection, if there is one, between those two as we look at a couple of different farm systems, the Reds and the Orioles, and how different they built their top 100 prospects. We're going to do that coming up next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
No matter what your situation may be, if you're a homeowner looking up at your roof, wondering what's going on up there, maybe a property manager,
Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Ryan Tracy, some Chiefs football coming up at 11 o'clock. We will hang out with Les Norman coming up at noon. College World Series last night, wrapping up, LSU winning their 7th national championship. Texas, speaking of LSU, 20 cars just flew by me with Louisiana license plates. Yeah, I mean, I bet that's the case. Texas, except when the Reds and Orioles graduate their minor leaguers, the team wins, unlike KC.
Fair.
Yeah, this group has not done that. The Royals' top farm system in the early 2000 teens graduated a lot of guys and traded, and they won a World Series. Texas, the Royals will finish with the worst record in baseball. The Cardinals will win the lottery pick for the first pick in the 2024 draft. It's the only way this can end. That's Bill in Bozeman, Montana. Bill, you're right. That's the nightmare and the expectation.
That happened a few times on my Tankathon sim lottery button. You know what? Maybe I start doing this once a day just to kind of see where we're at. This one right now, the Royals dropped to 7. I hit it one time. Boston Red Sox come all the way up from, I think, 14
Good for
to get
them.
the number 1 pick.
Good for them. But they need some more players and some other
I can
things
feel
to
that the
happen to them.
envelope was cold there. That's ridiculous.
Texas, a bunch of Asa Lacy's for LSU's roster. Sign me up.
That's kind of where I end up.
That's probably where a lot of people would end up. I wanted to look at the Orioles and Reds. We had mentioned them a couple of times, and the Orioles and Reds, they're playing each other right now, so it's an interesting series where both are trying to make the playoffs. Reds leading their division. Orioles are right on the heels of the Rays. I think they're only like 3 games back now. I haven't looked this morning, so 3 or 4 games back, but they're there, and they've got an opportunity to catch the Rays, or certainly make the playoffs as a wild card team. The way they have built their farm system in their just top 100 prospects, because combined, these two teams' farm systems have 19 top 100 prospects at one point, whether they're at the big league level now and they were in the top 100 or they're currently in the top 100. The two teams combined have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, have 12 of the top 100 still in the minor league farm system, minor league rankings. The Reds are number 1 in their division. Orioles are one of the best teams and only 4 games back of the Rays. And those two teams combined still have 12 of the top 100 players in the updated prospect rankings. But how did they get there is one of the questions, because we talk about draft and the Royals draft and the Royals draft and the Royals draft and maybe some trades and stuff like that. So if we look at the Reds, look at the Reds and Orioles. Let's start with the Reds, because they have graduated McClain at shortstop, who was number 87 in the top 100. Ellie De La Cruz, who's third base and shortstop, number 1 in the prospect rankings, the updated prospect rankings before he graduated. And then Andrew Abbott was number 61, left-handed pitcher. He's with the big league club as well. They have 9 players overall that started this season in the top 100. If you were to break that down between how do you build your farm system, it's draft, it's trade, it's international free agent signing. Out of the 9, how many do you think, if you broke it down and, 8 draft picks, 1 international, or 2 draft picks, and 5, how would you break it down between the 9 of those 3 categories? And we'll do the same thing with the Orioles, just to look at the difference between the 2 organizations building.
I think my general answer, not specifically trying to get it to the Orioles or Reds, would be 4 or 5 draft picks, and then kind of split the remaining group in half, so 2 or 3 on either side. But I would imagine the bulk would be through the draft. I wonder if that's true.
Dylan, what would you say? The 3 categories, draft, trade, and international free agent signings, the 9 top 100 prospects that started the season in the minor leagues with the Reds this year. How does that break down in those 3 categories of the 9? What was your exact numbers?
I'll say 4 draft picks.
Then you got 5 more.
2 international signings, 3 through trades.
Okay. Dylan?
I'll go 4 international with 3 draft and 2 trades.
Okay. It's only 1 international free agent. That's Ellie De La Cruz.
Okay.
For $65,000. So that's pretty good.
Pretty good deal. Yeah.
There's good return on investment for Ellie De La
might
Cruz
be.
right now,
Yeah.
if you can find something like that. 4 draft picks.
Okay.
And 4 trades.
Yeah.
So those are the 9 players that they have built. That's how they have built those 9 players to get in the top 100. The 4 draft picks, 3 of them were first rounders, 1 of them a second rounder. Matt McClain was a first rounder, 17th overall in 2021. The Royals took Frank Mazzucato, number 7. The other first rounder, Cam Collier was a first-rounder last year, number 18 overall. The Royals took Gavin Cross. And then Sal Stewart was a first-rounder last year, compensatory pick number 32. They got that pick for Nick Castellanos.
Yeah.
And the only other pick the Royals had was also Gavin Cross at number 8. So if the Royals in the last 2 years would have, instead of taking Mazzucato, taken Matt McLain, and instead of Gavin Cross, taken either Cam Collier or Sal Stewart, they'd have players in the top 100 minor leagues. That's also if those guys were still the same, because McLain is also up at the big league club right now from the 2021, 2022 seasons. Those are the draft picks. And then second rounder was Andrew Abbott, was the number 53 overall pick in 2021. The Royals drafted Mazzucato and Ben Kudrna ahead of Andrew Abbott. Abbott is now at the big league club, left-handed pitcher. Now, mind you, Andrew Abbott was a big guy that had some nice stuff, and then all of a sudden his miles per hour on his fastball jumped, and now he's a really good prospect. Is that going to happen with the Royals? The same steps that Andrew Abbott took with the Reds to get to where he is now, does that happen with the Royals? Or if the Royals would have taken Andrew Abbott, then Ben Kudrna might have been there with the Reds, and he might be a guy that's, well, this guy's already in Double-A. This guy's getting ready. So who knows? Now let's look at the Orioles. 10 players. 10 players in the top 100 from the last couple of years, because I'm throwing in Adley Rutschman, because that counts for what we're looking at with the Orioles.
He was drafted.
He was drafted.
I got that one.
So out of the 10, if you broke that down between draft, trade, and international free agent, out of the 10 players for the Orioles. And I want to go back to the Reds and look at the trades too, just as a comparison to the Royals.
I'm trying to see if my memory is betraying me, but I vaguely am thinking of the Orioles as being even more draft dependent from the conversations we've had, but I don't know if that's going to be true or not. I'm going to say 5 draft picks, 3 trades, 2 international.
5-3-2 for your 10.
Yeah, I'm going to go 6. Sorry to do that to you, Josh. 6 draft, and then 1 of each of the other.
Okay.
That's only going to get to 8. So no, I want those points for free.
Yes.
You hopped me by 1. I want my 2 left over.
My bad.
Fine, 2 of each.
So the reason I like this exercise
Yeah.
is how different the two organizations are.
Cool.
You were onto something, Josh.
Is it mostly draft picks for Orioles?
Out of the 10 players we're talking about, the draft picks numbers come to 10.
Well, Dylan's still freaking closer.
Every single one of their players in the last 2 years that have been in the top 100 prospect rankings have been draft picks by the Orioles.
And about half of the Reds were, right?
4 of them. 4 of the 9.
4
Less than
of
half.
9, just less than half.
Less than half. 10 draft picks, 6 of them drafted in the first round. Those 6 first-rounders, Adley Rutschman, number 1 overall. Jackson Holliday, number 1 overall. Grayson Rodriguez, number 11. Jordan Westberg, number 30. And then Colton Cowser, number 5. And then where's the other one? I can't find the other one right now. Heston Kjerstad, the number 2 overall pick. So they're your first-round draft picks. Number 1, number 2, number 5, number 11, number 30. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the 6 the Royals wouldn't have a chance to draft.
Yeah, the Orioles had a lot of good draft picks.
So it's not like we looked at the Reds and like, well, if they took Mazzucato and they could have taken Matt McLain.
Right.
The 5 of the 6. So there's nothing really the Royals could have done at that point, unless they looked at somebody and said, hey, we're going to pay way more than they're about to pay you.
Right, sure.
We will give you way more money than they will give you. Gunnar Henderson was a second-round pick in 2019. He ultimately became the number 1 player, number 1 prospect in all of baseball preseason this year. He was the 42nd pick in the draft. The Royals had 1 pick before the Orioles in that entire draft. That was Bobby Witt at 2nd overall. So they would have to have one hell of a projection to take Gunnar Henderson, who went 42nd.
I'm just going to say, I'm glad they didn't.
And also, Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, it's not like Gunnar Henderson is Adley Rutschman right now.
Yeah.
He's batting like 240. He's getting on base better than Bobby Witt right now. But I don't know that there's a huge difference between the two, except for the bonus money with number 2 versus number 42 with Gunnar Henderson. There's a couple of second-rounders, Connor Norby and Gunnar Henderson, and there's a couple of fourth-rounders with Joey Ortiz and Kobe Mayo. What's fascinating is also the Orioles in what they did in how they drafted. some of these drafts, they took just best player, and we'll give you the money. Adley Rushman, we're going to pay you. Jackson Holiday, we're going to pay you. We're going to give up some money to pay you. But there's also a couple of others where they went signability. For instance, in 2020, the number 2 overall pick was a real surprise. They took Heston Kjerstad, and they gave him like $2 million less than all of the other players around him at number 2. And it was a real surprise why you went Heston Kjerstad. But they were able to use that. 2020 was only 5 rounds. They were able to use that money, spread it around, and get Jordan Westberg with the number 30 pick, who got a lot more money than the players around him. He was number 34 beginning of this season. Now he's playing with the Orioles. Number 80 in all of baseball is Kobe Mayo, third baseman. He was a 4th-round pick. They gave him almost $2 million, which would have been top of 2nd-round money. So they went signability with Heston Kjerstad. Of their 5 picks, 3 of them are in the top 100. So they've gone, let's give a lot of money to one guy that's going to be worth it. And then they've also gone, let's maximize these different things. Yeah. Let's maximize some signability. So that's drafting and getting it right and developing. The Reds, a couple of that, but the Reds made trades. 4 of their players in the top 100 are trades. The number 19 player in all of baseball and the number 28 player in all of baseball both came from the Luis Castillo trade. They had a huge chip, and they cashed it in. And man, did they cash it in. Number 19 and number 28 in all of baseball from Luis Castillo. The number 91 prospect in all of baseball was a trade for Sonny Gray. And that was an offseason trade. And it's not like he's the number 5 player in all of baseball. He's at high A right now. Right-handed pitcher at high A. Who knows if he's going to work out. He's, 19 years old at high A, whatever. And the number 94 player in all of baseball is Christian Encarnacio Strand, who's the next guy to come up for the Reds. He's going to be a 30, 35 home run hitter, first base, third base guy. They got him last year trade deadline for Tyler Mahle, who's now with the Twins, and at that time had a 4.5 ERA with a 1.3 whip, but was a starter, and the Twins were looking for starter depth and bullpen guys at the trade deadline, and they got a guy that ended up being a top 100 prospect who's going to hit 30, 35 home runs in Christian Encarnacio Strand. And in 50 games at AAA has 17 home runs and 15 doubles and OPSing over 1,000 right now. Luis Castillo was a trade deadline trade. So 1, 2, 3 of their players that are all ranked in the top 100, 2 of the 3 in the top 30 were trade deadlines for the Reds. 1 international free agent, a couple of other draft picks. They didn't do it by drafting the first pick, the 5th pick, the 2nd pick, the 3rd pick. They had some assets that they traded, and an asset in Nick Castellano, who they let walk, but then they got Sal Stewart, who's in the top 100 now of prospects. So they've hit on some of those. But the Orioles and Reds have also missed on some that are in worse spots than the Royals. It's a matter of throwing the net over so many of them. But it's fascinating, Orioles and Reds, how vastly different they were in building that. Just a couple of draft picks for the Reds, 1 international free agent, and trades. Orioles, all draft picks, no trades. And I wonder that because did the Orioles have assets to trade? Yeah. Because they were finishing and with the top 5 picks every year. Yeah. So they didn't have assets, where the Reds did have a couple of assets. Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, Tyler Mahle, who they ended up trading. And they got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 100 prospects in all of baseball right now for those 3 trades.
I'm looking at a blurb from the Reds beat writer for The Athletic when the Sonny Gray trade happened. They're talking about like moving the salary and how they had already kind of been tearing down at that point. Yeah. And a lot of those teardown moves were simultaneously occurring with building up the farm system in this really interesting way.
Yeah, and who knows if Chase Petty ever ends up being anything. He's at A-ball right now. A pitcher, and he's the number 91 prospect in all of baseball. The Royals have had plenty of top 100 prospects and pitchers in baseball. That Jackson Kowar was like number 30 at one point. So you never really know how these guys are going to pan out. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
rankings ranked 1 through 32 for each team. I want to ask Ryan Tracy about that. Who can take a step forward? What this offensive line will look like this year? Orlando Brown had some comments on NFL Live yesterday, which were interesting. That we'll play throughout the show and get into that conversation, and just simply look at some of the positions for the Chiefs and how much better they may be, or are they heading in the opposite direction? We'll talk with Ryan Tracy, a number of things to get into and discuss with him about this Chiefs team. Les Norman comes up at noon. We'll talk with him, breaking the norm, some Royals baseball. Sterling Holmes will join us. He's playing Todd Lebo today.
Come be a part of the Kansas City Comets cheerleaders for the upcoming indoor soccer season at Cable Dahmer Arena.
Sweet and sour pork.
On Sports Radio 810.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB on this Tuesday edition of the show. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll hang out with Sterling Holmes in the 1 o'clock hour. He's playing Todd Lebo today, a little fact or fiction, and Todd Lebo's playing Soren Petro. Soren Petro's playing Josh Brisco heading overseas. See? There we go. It's all full circle here. We're all trying to figure out how it is to walk in another man's shoes.
Who am I playing? I ask myself that in the mirror
Corey.
every morning. I'm always playing Corey, actually. That's a good point.
And Corey is playing a kept man in Utah.
Renee,
That's
as soon as you're ready to move to Utah, you just let me know.
As soon as you are ready to get a big-time job that will pay you tons and tons of money, I will gladly follow you across the rivers. I'll follow you across hell if that's what I have to do.
Utah might be a bridge too far, but hell for sure. Definitely hell.
You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me. You don't know that reference. That's not a big deal.
That's okay.
Let's bring in Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs, RGR Football. Let's talk some NFL, some Chiefs football with us. Ryan, what's up, man? How are you today?
Yeah, personally, I enjoy Moab, but we got to get Josh in front of that movie. That's what I'm
Exactly. Thank you. That is exact. There's a shootout at the OK Corral that's going to be taking place soon. Damn it, Josh. All right, so let's talk about a few things that are going on today that have been in the news either yesterday or even today. Let's start with the offensive line for the Chiefs and even connect it to the Cincinnati Bengals. Orlando Brown Jr. was on with NFL Live yesterday and talked about the differences between blocking for Patrick Mahomes and blocking for Joe Burrow and the depth and things like that. Does he have a point in your mind, Ryan, in Orlando Brown and maybe his job being a little bit easier in protecting the inside or bull rushers if Joe Burrow's not having as many steps and depth in the pocket and maybe getting rid of the ball a little bit earlier? Or is Orlando Brown just trying to find ways to make it seem like he's going to be much improved with the Bengals than he was with the Chiefs?
Functionally, it is less of a challenge for Orlando, knowing that he doesn't have to gain quite as much depth, which is the challenge in what his natural strengths are. But it's also the fact that he's going to have to guard the inside a lot better than he has in years past. He's got to make sure that he locks everything down. There's no more excuses because Burrow cannot move like Mahomes, and that really not only makes his job more stable, but it makes it a very much more directed pass rush. They have to get to a spot that is more specific for Joe Burrow than it ever will be for Patrick Mahomes. And he may see that as an advantage right now, but it's also going to be quite an anvil on his shoulder.
I thought it was interesting the play that they used as well yesterday that they talked about was a play that the play right before half that Patrick Mahomes got injured on. And that play, Orlando Brown got beat by Josh Sweat to the inside. He just beat him to the inside, and Orlando Brown lost him and tried to push him, and then Mahomes had to immediately escape outside the pocket. So that was kind of fascinating to hear that conversation about, protecting the inside will be easier, and Mahomes with a quick drop, and then he gets beat to the inside on a play that they break down and discuss. I don't think NFL Live did that on purpose. I think they were just simply going to talk about that play and a couple of others they used from the Super Bowl. But Ryan, that was kind of interesting, that connection of I'm just going to guard on the inside, it'll be easier than guys having to go around me, and then they show a play where he got beat directly to the inside, and it was pretty quick.
Yeah, if you watch the film and you're not the player that's trying to, obviously it's making the media rounds for Orlando right now.
Yeah, right.
New city, new town,
Yeah.
another all-star quarterback. But if you watch the film, everyone who watches film understands how you're going to go beat him. And it's not about combating his length around the outside. It is about those transitions and counters back to where a more stationary quarterback is going to be sitting. I honestly think this puts Joe Burrow, who's sneakily more athletic than I think we give him credit for.
Yeah.
I think it puts him in more jeopardy than anybody's letting on in Cincinnati.
Ryan Tracy is our guest. As we look at this Chiefs offensive line, Orlando Brown's gone. Chiefs have Donovan Smith. At what level do you think the Chiefs can get from Donovan Smith at left tackle this year, maybe to the level of how Orlando Brown played last year? Can he improve and exceed that? Is it just below that? Roughly similar to Orlando Brown? If you're looking at whether projecting a high end, a realistic for Donovan Smith at the left side for the Chiefs, what do you think they have in store for him?
I think you have to make a separation here because you have to give Orlando Brown credit for his postseason play, which was,
Agreed.
I think, a drastic improvement over the regular season. When you look at the regular season, however, though, both he and Andrew Wiley gave up, I think they were both bottom 10 in terms of overall pressures given up, and Donovan Smith was right there with them. So any return to his previous range, particularly Smith's performance in 2021, if he gets even 80% back to that, it's going to be a drastic improvement in the total number of pressures that are coming down Patrick Mahomes' throat. And that overall will, I think, increase the play, especially knowing that with the wide receiver group that it's not a 1-2-3 read, it's a 1-2-3-4-5 read. A lot more so this season than years past.
Explain that. Elaborate a little bit with that. The 1-2-3 versus the 1-2-3-4-5 this year as opposed to years past.
I think what we saw with the departure of Tyreek Hill was that teams weren't exactly sure how they were going to try to attack the Chiefs' offense. Now we understand that it's going to be Travis as always.
Yeah.
But then who emerges? I think there's going to be some playing around with, is it Kadarius Toney early in the season? Is it Sky Moore? Who takes that reign? And then how do the defenses adjust? So you might have to get to not only a third, but possibly a fourth read. We all know he doesn't want to dump off the ball to the running backs as much unless it happens to be McKinnon in the end zone. But it is going to take, I think, a little bit longer in the progression to get through a few more guys because I think we're going to see a little bit more nebulous defense until defense coordinators around the league think they know what the offense is going to go to in terms of their strengths in the pass country.
Have we seen teams, and maybe they did it a year ago, have we seen teams adjust to all right, the Chiefs are going underneath, they're taking these longer drives, they are, eating up against these cover twos, these deep safeties, the shell covers, they're running the ball if need be, and Mahomes is cooking right now. Did we see teams adjust last year? And if not, do you think that'll happen this year to where teams will now go the opposite of what you would think with the Chiefs and say, all right, prove it that you can beat us over the top. Prove it that you can now go the deep passes and we're going to come up closer and we're going to play more of the run and we're not going to let you just pick us apart for 6 and 7 and 8 yard gains.
It feels to me like we saw the hints of teams being able to adapt and willing to adapt. But there were enough big play shots still that I don't think you're going to see a ton of man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it is the bread and butter of a given coordinator's game and they feel that they have the athletes to run, okay. But Kadarius Toney's made enough splash plays that there's going to be some healthy respect for his game. MVS can still stretch the field, and I do think that's recognized around the league. The drop issue is a separate thing that I think Chiefs Kingdom gets held up on. But for defensive coordinators, they understand what he's capable of. So I do think there's a willingness there, but I think the key is until they run with more of an abandon, not just when the opportunity presents itself, I don't think you're going to see that kind of, we're going to put more in the box and just man up outside and see what happens. And I think that's part of maybe the early structure of the season is to try to force that a little bit more, which I think will pay big dividends if they can get to that point.
Interesting. And force that. Look, Brett Veach talked about Kadarius Toney and saying that, he's got a deep game and he's got a game over the top, but, he hasn't shown that at the NFL level and couldn't show it last year because there was a very specific and limited part of the playbook that they gave him to learn because he came in so late. You're not going to give him the entire playbook. Well, now he's had the offseason. He's getting more used to it. He understands the calls and where he's supposed to be on depth and working out with Patrick Mahomes, that maybe that's an added element. And, of course, you mentioned MVS. And I think even maybe Rashee Rice, maybe it's not taking the top off the defense, but if it's just simply going down the sideline, if somebody wants to man him up and he's got a cornerback on his hip, that he's shown that if Mahomes simply throws him the ball, he showed in college, that he's got that sort of innate ability, instinctual ability to go and catch the football, that if he's a bigger-bodied guy and taller than, a lot of cornerbacks he'll probably be going up against in man-to-man coverage, if you do offer Toney that can go over the top and MVS that can go over the top and Rashee Rice that can maybe just, catch some jump balls, those are some counters to a team saying, prove it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And by spreading the ball around, it keeps them where they can't get very specific. It's going to be harder to double cover Kelce and still feel like you're protected against who the emerging threat might be. I agree that I think Toney's downfield game can come out and can surface this year. I think it's also going to be predicated on how they go to exploit that by particularly alignment with either MVS, but more in particular with Sky Moore to me. I look forward to seeing Toney and Moore on the field together in some reasonable stacks or in close proximity enough so you can use both of their short area quickness to try and diverge some of these zones and break defenses' rules of engagement. I think that's going to be the key to getting him loose.
Ryan Trace is our guest, Locked On Chiefs, RGR Football. The Kadarius Toney conversation is interesting and fascinating because we know how good he could be, or at least we have an idea of how good he could be if he was healthy throughout the course of the season. We've also seen him struggle in that. he had limited reps last year with the Chiefs, and one of the things that came out and looking at it from like week 9 to the Super Bowl, the targets per route run, he was number 2 in the NFL from week 9 to the Super Bowl behind only Tyreek Hill. Limited routes run, but targets per route run, it was Tyreek Hill, and then it was Kadarius Toney. Yards per route run, he was number 5 in the NFL from week 9 to the Super Bowl. So I'm wondering, Ryan, if you're guessing and projecting with this team moving forward, is that because when they got Kadarius Toney on the field, they wanted to take advantage of what they had and it was a limited playbook? Or is that the way they view him, that even with an expanded playbook and more of an every down guy that could be with this team as one of the starters, that they will be, that target share will be going to Kadarius Toney, that they want to get him the ball that often in a game? Or does that expectation come down because if he's out there every play with a Sky Moore and an MVS and things like that, he'll just be a part of the overall offense that maybe the play's designed for him and maybe not?
I tend to think that last year was kind of like, everybody's joyride. You rent, a Corvette or a McLaren, and you want to go as fast as you can, but like you get to that 100-mile-an-hour mark, and you start to get a little hesitant. It felt like they had this group of designs that they could use that he was very effective at, and they didn't necessarily want to push too far outside of that and waste reps that were valuable late in the season and certainly in the postseason. And so they just kind of capped it at, hey, we're going to do what he does best right now and exploit it for all that it's worth. And I really do think this is going to be throwing the foot to the floor with Toney next to be on the field more enough that you can expand that route tree. And I do think that there will be not only plays designed for him, but complementary plays that might be designed as the primary read for a deep throw to MVS, say, but there's going to be more of those deep crosser, the wasp type maneuvers, that it's going to be a secondary route that Toney will be running, but he's more likely to be the guy that's open.
Do you think he would get the if you're guessing who would be the leader in targets from wide receivers if everybody's healthy, which is hard to predict, but without trying to get in and discuss injuries, if you're looking at MVS or Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney, I would guess those would be the three that would be most likely in contention. Who would you give the leader in the clubhouse the most likely to lead this team in targets this year after Kelsey?
Right now I am leaning towards Toney. Again, the problem with him is it's always about availability.
Yeah. And
in particular, if his soft tissue work has been corrected, and from everything that we hear about off-season training, he looks good and he hasn't had any hiccups. Part of that is being with the Chiefs training staff, which we all know can do a lot of good work, but it's also about how he takes care of himself personally. And I think the challenge from Mahomes, being in that huddle with him, no matter what time of year it is, whether you're going against air in TCU's practice facility or you're in a playoff game, that challenge from the quarterback, I think, pushes him to take care of himself a little bit better. And hopefully we see that on the field in that we get 15 regular season games out of Kadarius Toney this year. If he does that, I think he will be the wide receiver target leader.
Bill Barnwell at ESPN ranked the 32 teams in skill position and receivers from wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, and running backs overall, running the football and receiving. But just skill positions minus the quarterback, 1 through 32. The Chiefs came in at number 19. They were 3 spots down from where they were a year ago at number 16. You mentioned that, they lost Juju, they lost McCole Hardman, replaced him with essentially Rashee Rice. And Kadarius Toney this year, because Toney wasn't a part of the number 16 ranking a year ago. Depending on what happens this year, let's say the Chiefs have another positive offensive year where it's expected that they're number 1 or number 2, and Mahomes has his typical year. Moving forward, is the strategy for Brett Veach that it's going to be we do what we can no matter what to protect Patrick Mahomes, and after that we can figure out the skill positions and got to have people that are at least capable of doing those things, but not we got to go and get a number 1 receiver. You had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and Kelce still counts as that, but this high-end true number 1 difference maker that's going to cost a lot of money? Or is the value for the Chiefs going to be protect Patrick Mahomes, and we know what we can do with he and Andy Reid teaming up to make guys around them better?
I think the priority will always be to protect 15 no matter what. That's your ride or die. But there will be a transition here with the arrival of Juwan Taylor, the draft pick of Wanye Morris, and whatever happens next draft, you can see yourself getting significantly younger, particularly at the tackle spots. and you probably feel like you have the depth to weather a retirement from Joe Thuney in the next 4 years and still be able to say that you have made that the top priority. So I think it becomes opportunistic about when you bring in another elite talent at, say, a pass catcher, certainly at running back. And it feels like it is, let's have a group of twos or a group of 1Bs rather than a singular elite 1A. And I think that's probably a good plan going forward. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be an opportunity at some point, either through free agency or possibly a trade, I think, in the future. When the cap goes down, right now I think they have 134 available in 2025. That seems to be where, if they stagger the Chris Jones extension correctly, and we see what happens with L'Jarius Sneed, and then next year's class with Bolton, Creed, and Trey Smith, if you can stagger those correctly, I think there'll be an opportunity there to add another contending type weapon there into the pass catcher group that might take it over the top. But then again, if you see Tony emerge, you might feel like you don't necessarily have to do that. And when MVS's time has completed in Kansas City, you might look to get another 2-level player that you feel you can grow into a 1B.
Well, also, as you get these couple of years ahead, you're looking at the sliding or that weight scale that if you're adding on one side, you're also losing in what Kelsey would have over the next 2 or 3 years and the effectiveness and how good he can be at that time. So then it becomes even more imperative, right? That you got to find. It's one thing to protect Patrick Mahomes, because when we say, well, he doesn't have a number one receiver, he's got Travis Kelsey. Okay, so it's one of the best weapons in all of football. Without Travis Kelsey, though, then I do think it's more of a discussion of, okay, so who's the guy that's the go-to that is I like to say a force multiplier that can do so many things against the defense that he creates opportunities for others around him. There isn't a guy on the offense, skill position players right now that we've seen consistently other than Travis Kelsey. Without Kelsey, maybe it's Tony, maybe, but that's really it. And at that point, then you got to look and say, okay, how much money, where are the resources, what do you have at offensive line and other places to see, and who's available and opportunistic to go out and bring in a guy that could be a difference maker if it's trading for a high-level wide receiver or drafting one, trading up to draft one, or signing one or something like that. That at some point, and I don't want to think about it, but at some point you got to have life without Travis Kelsey, damn it.
Yeah, you don't want to face that.
I know.
And here's the really interesting thing about that is Travis is a homegrown commodity, right? Obviously, when you bring up pass catchers for Mahomes in particular, any investment you make at the draft level, at UDFA level, anything that you're growing yourself is important. The league isn't necessarily the same way. George Kittle is not a first-round pick, right? But you can see a number of guys that I would call Brett Veach types, particularly Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, who might get through their first contract and might be looked at as a reclamation project at that time because of the offense that they're in and the quarterback that they've had. And you might find somebody young that's coming into a second contract that Brett Veach can pick up on the relative cheap. Obviously, it won't be super cheap as a draft pick, but in a way that you can see that the original evaluation said he could be a star to the Chiefs front office, and they're still bought into maybe on a second contract we can actually put him with Mahomes and get him there. So I'd be on the lookout for that as well.
Maybe a little bit, maybe a higher level of the trade for Kadarius Toney, third rounder for a former first rounder that the Chiefs liked and even tried to trade for earlier in the offseason last year, along those lines, and maybe for maybe I don't know, maybe a higher profile one like that was like, wow, this guy was a top 10 pick, and boy, if they can tap into that.
Yeah, exactly. Potential versus performance.
Yeah. Ryan Trace is our guest, Locked On Chiefs, RGR Football. As we looked at the defensive side, and this is just a general question, and we'll let you go, but as we look at this Chiefs team and the expected, improvement or experience of the guys in the secondary that have, played all of last year, and it's like, there aren't many spots on this Chiefs team and defense that you're going, well, this starter is open for grabs, except opposite George Karlaftis at defensive end, Aminu, Felix and Udike Uzama. Is the expectation for you this year that the defense, given that, they held the Jags in the divisional round with an injured Patrick Mahomes, and the Bengals scored 20 points in the AFC Championship game, whether Tyler Boyd was hurt or not, they scored 20 points, that defense, and did what they had to do. Is the expectation for you that this defense is going to be better than what they were a year ago with the players they've added and also the expected improvement and experience in the secondary?
I think it's going to be a little bit tagged at the beginning with the youth in particular and how much change there is up front. I think they'll finish strong, but in the end, because I think they'll have a lag the first quarter of the season, maybe 5 games, something like that. I think you could see a little bit lower production overall in terms of pressures and sacks, but in the end, I think that will still equate to the same number, if not more, wins in this coming season. It's a tough schedule, so you never know until you see the matchups, but what I like about what they've done on the defensive front is that you can line pretty much anyone up anywhere you want and feel like pass rush reps are there to be had. And the menu in particular, I feel, is really the chess piece we're not talking about, because he's not the traditional edge that you feel can bend around and really exploit the outside shoulder. I feel his best pass rush is still inside. And so on pass rush downs, you bring him in next to Chris Jones. You have the rookie come in. Maybe you have a speed rush. Maybe you bring in Leo Chanel to do a little bit here or there. But the versatility and the variability, I think, for Joe Collins' front, I think is really what's going to pay the dividends, because they'll be able to be matchup specific every week in how they pass rush. And I think that's going to be the key to getting them back on track in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what an obvious passing situation looks like with Karlaftis, Jones, Aminahu, and Felix out there on the field at the same time, with matchup specific, and if they run a game or something like that, just to see those 4 guys out there and what they can do. I'm excited about what the prospects of that looks like this coming season, because that could be a lot of fun with Spags and Colin and things like that. Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs, RGR Football. Ryan, you're the man. Really appreciate the time today, bud, and enjoy, I guess, talking about the Chiefs in the offseason for the next month or so, but then we get hot and heavy in about 3 weeks from now when they head up to St. Joe, so looking forward to that as well and continuing to listen to the podcast and the coverage as well. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it, bud.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you all at camp.
Absolutely. There's Ryan Tracy. Great stuff. Go check out the podcast. Good podcast, Locked On Chiefs. They discuss a lot of different things, and they get into some specifics as well. And it's a fun listen if you're a Chiefs fan. And interesting. Early on, he looks at it. It's kind of the same thing we talked about yesterday to a degree, or not yesterday, but last year to a degree, in what the defense was going to look like with the new players in the secondary. And Frank Clark being brought back, and Carlos Dunlap, but drafting Karlaftis. The earlier games were going to be rough for the defense, but as the season progressed, they were going to get better and better. And I think that's ultimately what happened. Again, we talk about what Patrick Mahomes did on one ankle and all of the injuries they had to the wide receiving core. The Bengals might have had a banged-up offensive line, but that offensive line played the previous 2 weeks together. And that offensive line got lots of pats on the back and praise for what they did in Buffalo. And the Chiefs were able to exploit that because of the way the defense played. And yes, they lost Tyler Boyd in the game, and that could have made a difference. But they held that team to 20 points. And they held that team in the fourth quarter with multiple chances for the Bengals to go and get a field goal to take the lead, and they got nary a point. So that's an obvious improvement from where they were at different times when they couldn't get stops. They did when they had to, and so interesting that was the conversation a year ago, that Ryan's saying, early on they might be a little tagged in the beginning of the season with the new players up front, maybe a little less pass rush, maybe a little less pressure, some turnovers. But as the season goes along, you'll see this team defensively be better than what they were a year ago. And I would expect that same thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Orlando Brown will play some clips from his time on NFL Live yesterday and the media rounds, media tour that he's making, and then also Bill Barnwell, the skill positions and the rankings. I want to get into that and what he said and wrote about the Chiefs in comparison to where they were a year ago, which was a little bit higher, but still middle of the pack. More Zone coming up next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Trust is a big deal, especially when it comes to your health.
Coming up in the noon hour, Les Norman, breaking the norm. We will hang out with him, talk some baseball, some Royals, some draft, some other things. 913-912-4810 is the text line, 913-912-4810. Let's hear from Orlando Brown. And let's play the clip that I mentioned with Ryan Tracy about Orlando Brown talking about the difference in protecting Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes. It is about a minute long. Here's Orlando Brown yesterday on NFL Live discussing the differences in what his job will be.
And now Joe Burrow, you have two quarterbacks who are not perceived as the most dynamic runners in the NFL, but might be the best in terms of climbing up in the pocket, finding lanes, and scrambling. I think that's a commonality between those two quarterbacks. As a tackle, moving from that offense to the Bengals offense, how does that affect you in terms of your sets, how you create pockets, just knowing that the quarterback, the guy behind you, is a real threat to climb that pocket and find an escape lane up the middle?
Yeah, no, it'll be very different for me personally. Obviously, a lot of these drops by Patrick right here in the Super Bowl were similar to kind of what I'm going to see in Cincinnati. But so many different concepts that we run in Cincinnati compared to Kansas City from a pass standpoint with the receivers. It's going to be a lot more firm. It's going to be on me a lot more quicker. I'll be able to be a lot more aggressive in certain situations, just given the personnel and the way that they call plays in Cincinnati.
So one of the other things, and I could not find this yesterday, and I'm disappointed that I couldn't find it yesterday or this morning. And so I was searching, and I spent too much time searching, so those things happen. But one of the other things that he said that was going around the internet yesterday was, Jordan Foote had quote tweeted it and put it out there, and it got a lot of run.
I've got it if you want me to read it.
Yeah.
I also could not find the audio for the life of me today. I downloaded an entire other segment of NFL Live.
And also, by the way, it might not have been on NFL Live. It might have been on the other car wash that he was doing and different things. So it could have been on a radio, things like that. But he says, Orlando Brown, I'm blocking for Joe Burrow, quote, now as opposed to having to play in a lot more space with guys on my edge, guys have got to rush through me because Joe isn't necessarily at 12.5 or 13 yards on certain drops. He's going to be at 7.5 getting the ball out. That got a lot of run and a lot of reaction last night. And I think an expected reaction, really, from Chiefs fans. Whether it was an expected overreaction or just an expected reaction at all. Because there's a few things at play here. It's Mahomes versus Burrow. It's Orlando Brown, who's been a lightning rod. And it's Orlando Brown comparing Mahomes versus Burrow. And it's also Orlando Brown sort of, maybe in his eyes, it's not making an excuse for some of the issues that happened, but saying, this is why it's going to be better for me in Cincinnati as opposed to in Kansas City, where maybe it wasn't maximizing my skill set there. So it's Mahomes versus Burrow, it's the rivalry, and it's also, well, they didn't do me a whole lot of favors. In theory, if we're sort of editorializing, didn't do me a whole lot of favors in the scheme for my skill set.
Yeah, and because I think I kind of sigh and laugh a little bit when you say maybe an expected reaction, because this is a complicated one for me. Because on one side, I understand what Orlando Brown Jr. is doing right now. He is an active player who's pretty good on TV and is willing to do that. Not a ton of active guys are. After your career's over, if you haven't made those connections, maybe you don't have as easy of a time having that next phase of your career come together. And again, like, he wants to do that. I'm guessing Joe Tooney has probably declined some interview requests.
What?
But
I would love to see Joe Tooney at the big board with Dan Orlovsky breaking down a play in the blocking scheme.
I think he would have to go into calculus at some point just to bring it back out again into English.
I blocked this guy right here, and then he went over there.
Yeah, and so this guy, he retired the next play.
Okay.
Took his will to live, I guess.
But I'm just right on this play. I'm just doing my 1 of 11.
Yeah.
So
really well. You noticed that?
Well, I'm just doing what they asked me to do.
What Andy Heck said to do here, I can't tell you that, of course.
So anyway, but future and TV and all that stuff as opposed to Joe Tooney.
I understand why he's doing all of that.
Yeah.
But also, every time he opens his mouth around a Chiefs adjacent thing, for the reasons you've already laid out, he's gonna end up hearing about it, or Chiefs fans are going to react to it. I don't think he said anything terribly irresponsible across his time on NFL Live. Some of the other audio we have, that clip, the quote that Jordan tweeted out. He at no point did he say something totally out of pocket, or he's like, "Come on, man."
He didn't say Burrow's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL.
He's not. Yes,
I can't.
Yes.
I can't wait to block for the best quarterback in the NFL.
He's not on the Tyreek Hill tour. I mean, that really is that is a really good comparison as to what would be a way worse way for him to be going about all of this. But also, it does sound a little bit like, well, here I'm going to be even better than I was over there because they're going to play into my strengths.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to do me some favors. And I think at one point they aired another clip where Jerick McKinnon came and helped him on a little chip block, and then he just kind of was it Pacheco?
It was Pacheco on that particular one.
And then he just sort of stood there and just kind of watched his guy. And it's like the framework for anything around Orlando Brown is always going to either include sour grapes or sound like sour grapes, depending on which side you're coming at it from. And I think what he said was fine, but I understand why Chiefs fans would immediately get prickly about it.
Well, I thought it was interesting the two plays that they used. So they used two plays in the Super Bowl in breaking down on the video board with Dan Orlovsky and Orlando Brown. The play in which Patrick Mahomes had to scramble, get outside the pocket right before half, and he was tackled and his ankle re-injured. That was because Orlando Brown got beat to the inside. I didn't cut the clip because it was sort of a brief, quick comment while he was talking about other things, and he said, "Well, the guard fell right there. I was expecting help from him." Almost like because he did overextend on the outside and then got beat to the inside. So that might have been the reason why Joe Thuney got cut. The defensive tackle went and cut Joe Thuney, so he was on the ground. So I didn't cut it because I don't think Orlando Brown was saying it's Joe Thuney's fault that I got beat.
No, it's
I think
just what happened in the play.
He was like, they were running a game,
yes,
and part of it was defensive tackle. You cut him out. We're gonna go outside, overextend, and then he's coming directly inside when there's no help because that left guard should be on the ground. In theory, that's how it's going to play out, and that's how it played out on that particular play. So they chose two plays there. One of them, the first one they did, was Orlando Brown getting beat to the inside, and then Patrick Mahomes having to step back, scramble around, and then ultimately he gets tackled from behind and hurts his ankle. That was the one play. The other play that they used was Pacheco coming from Patrick Mahomes' right at the snap to cut across Mahomes' face and go and chip Sweat, the defensive end, in which Orlando Brown didn't really have to do much on that particular play. And then that was the huge Mahomes run up the middle in the fourth quarter that got the big first down and everything. That was one of the best plays we've seen from Mahomes with his legs. Two of the better plays from Mahomes in the postseason were, his legs running against the Bengals on the sideline and then right up the middle against the Eagles. I thought it was interesting. Those were the two plays that they used. Orlando Brown getting beat to the inside and then Orlando Brown not even having to block.
Yeah, that is very strange.
Odd that they used those plays. And I'm not saying they couldn't find other plays where Orlando Brown just dominated his guy because he was fine in the Super Bowl. That wasn't something to where it's like he was exposed, he was awful, and the Chiefs almost lost because they had a sieve at left tackle. They went against the number one team in sacks in the NFL, and they gave up several in that game. So there was not a sieve, and it was not, oh, thank God Orlando Brown's not there anymore because he cost him the Super Bowl or almost cost him the Super Bowl. It was just interesting, I guess, the choices in what they used for the two plays to talk with Orlando Brown, because he does talk about not getting beat to the inside, and the specific play they use is him getting beat to the inside and forcing Mahomes to get outside the pocket quickly and run and scramble.
And even then, and yes, this is I'm rewatching the one on the inside where it's McKinnon going out and then he loses to the inside. I'm guessing this is where he's talking about
Thuney
going down here. Yeah. But I guess you could make an argument that, hey, like even being on an island like that more often and knowing your quarterback always can bail to the outside again, make like not even just for when you expect help on the interior, but that can make you have to overcorrect when you'd maybe rather kind of anchor a little more to the interior. But it is really weird to just like have a guy in NFL Live for some film breakdown, and we're going to pick on a couple of reps that do not make you look particularly good. Is very odd, and I don't know if Orlando knew what plays they were going to be going through before they started doing it, if he knew weeks in advance, I have no idea. But the Orlando Brown sort of press tour continues to be sort of a unique one.
And I am really interested in seeing how the Bengals use Orlando Brown. Here's the thing. The Bengals have gone up against Orlando Brown 4 times in the last 2 years. They know what kind of player he is.
Yep.
So they've scouted him. they've countered him, they've attacked him, so they would know then what other defense are going to do against him. So then how do we adjust? Because the Bengals have had success against Orlando Brown. So I don't think they go into this. I think they go into this with eyes wide open with Orlando Brown. So how do they adjust? And maybe the concepts and maybe the scheme that Orlando Brown's seeing in minicamp and mandatory OTAs and things like that are going to be of the quicker, you're going to have guys that are going to be coming around the outside, is not going to have enough time for that guy to get there when Burrow's getting rid of the ball in 2.15 seconds, which is what he averaged last year. It was the third or fourth of all qualifying quarterbacks, which was like 24 quarterbacks. I think Burrow was like third or fourth in time, releasing the football, like 2.15 seconds. So there is more of a quicker passing game with that. But let's not act like Burrow doesn't take some 5 or 7 step drops even out of the shotgun so that Jamar Chase can get deep or other guys can try to take the top off the defense. They are not a dink and dunk offense of just let me swing it out to P. Ryan, not anymore, but let me throw a little hitch to Jamar Chase or a little comebacker or a little slant to T. Higgins, and Boyd's going to be a possession guy of a 5 yards or anything. They're going to go intermediate. They're going to take some shots downfield, and he's going to have to, protect. It might be easier if they do that less often, so therefore he's prepared for that, and other defensive ends are not thinking they have time to go around the edge. They very well may take advantage of his skill set where the Chiefs were going, we need you to block this way because we ain't changing our offense for how you block. And also Patrick Mahomes is not going to just simply say, I am stuck being a pocket passer because I know I can't gain depth in the pocket because I'm going to get beat from the edge and those defensive ends coming around like against Wiley and against Orlando Brown.
And that is a real part of Mahomes' game. Like, I know everyone has seen it, but I wonder if everyone kind of processes that. When basically any time Mahomes turns his back to the offensive line, he is now in a spot you do not expect him to be. Even more so, we've talked for years now, and he's worked on it, and I think it's gotten better. But he will take that super deep drop where the drifting continues.
Yeah.
That was something 2 or 3 years ago now. That was like the big topic of the offseason.
When he had Fisher and Schwartz and less guard to guard, he would gain depth because he had less trust in the guys in the middle.
And then it was a matter of throwing off your back foot. Now your tackles don't know where you are. You don't trust your interior, like you said. And then is that a bad habit? Then is there, the rest of the year?
Because he had to change that because guard to guard is pretty stout now.
Yep.
You're not allowing pressure right up the middle. It's the guys coming around the edge. So now you've got to step up in the pocket or find your, escape routes.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif I was talking to in the locker room once years ago. It just felt like a good name drop.
Dropper.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
I just...
Were you talking to him in French?
I wasn't. No, unfortunately not. But we were just talking about that interior and the depth of pocket and Mahomes dropping. I completely forgot about this conversation. But he was just kind of going back to the basics of that guard-to-guard setting the depth of the pocket and the tackle setting the width of the pocket, which I've thought back on when we've had these conversations in the past where, again, to think about like where Mahomes' sweet spot is in the pocket, it's not a problem for a tackle to lose 15 yards behind the play. That seems like something that people see and it looks bad, but it's not actually a bad result. If Orlando Brown runs a dude around the back of the pocket, that's no problem because he's not getting to Patrick Mahomes. The question is, when you start doing that and the line starts falling apart, you open up other gaps, and where's Mahomes going to escape? And he also loses the inside sometimes and all that.
And a quick aside, when Orlando Brown tries to push the guy into the wash, he also just stops running.
Yeah,
Orlando
sometimes.
Brown just sort of stops and the play's over, and then that guy goes and
he
gets
keeps
after
chasing,
Mahomes.
and so it's not. That's not ideal.
That is an issue for Orlando Brown that I don't think is going to get better just by a different scheme or concept.
I think that's probably true.
But anyway, go ahead.
But I just think that the ecosystem of how all those parts end up working together is really fascinating, and it puts into context something like investing a second-round pick in Creed Humphrey and all that money in Joe Thuney and Ryan Tracy talking about not a year they can move on from Joe Thuney, but a year they could afford to see Joe Thuney retire, which I just thought was interesting.
An interesting way of framing it. Yes,
that man loves a good offensive line, Ryan Tracy, and I cannot begrudge him that.
Was Veach.
But I am really intrigued, especially with the new look O-line, with all the questions we do still have about Donovan Smith. I think are very fair. I think Juwan Taylor is going to be a really nice fit as a match for those three on the interior, and I do think Mahomes is probably going to have a pretty nice time in the pocket this year.
Yeah, and we'll see. I'd rather have and this is not a change from like last flashy or anything, but I'd rather have the 5 consistent guys across the offensive line than you've got Trent Williams and 4 guys that are subpar. No, I'll take if Donovan Smith plays a representative left tackle and Jawan Taylor plays where he was a year ago at right tackle, and the 3 guys interior play the way that they did. That's a really freaking good. It's a top 5 offensive line at worst, because they're number 1 to 3 depending on the ranking.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at that and maybe a couple of offensive lines step up and play better or exceed expectations, maybe the Chiefs slide down a little bit. But you're not talking about the offensive line in the Super Bowl against the Bucs. You're talking about a top 5 offensive line that is there, and just different ways of going about it. And we'll see if there's a change in scheme or a change in what the Bengals want to do with Orlando Brown. And I think both teams, Chiefs and Bengals, knew what they were getting with Orlando Brown.
Yep.
And I think the Chiefs had a perfectly fine exchange of, I know there's an issue of guys that are coming around the corner, but this is our offense. And we can adjust different ways with McKinnon or Pacheco and give some help here or there when we know we're going to have a deeper set and you might have a disadvantage over there. But we're not going to change it to 3-step drops and quickly get the ball out with Mahomes, because we don't trust this speed rusher around the edge for you to be able to give Mahomes 3 seconds in the pocket to be able to throw the football. I can't imagine the Bengals will do the same thing and just say we're gonna change everything that we have with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow, because our left tackle, when they went through a season with a sieve at left tackle and they feel like they've improved, and I think they have improved. From Jonah Williams to Orlando Brown, they've improved. And no matter how good Orlando Brown is thought to be with his time with the Chiefs, they got better at left tackle, did the Bengals.
And if the Chiefs didn't get worse at left tackle, everybody's thrilled.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Chiefs got better at right tackle.
Yes.
And they, stay the same or improved in the interior. And real quick as we take a break, I can't remember who it was, and you were talking about LDT, but I can't remember who it was, maybe last year or the year before. It might have been Trey Smith. He's the one that comes to mind, but he's going into year 3, so it may not have been him. But they were talking about a difference in protecting and blocking for a Patrick Mahomes as opposed to a quarterback maybe in college. And he said it's the cadence, not of the snap count or anything, but the cadence and the timing of how long to block. That it was how long you're blocking, and then it's like ... okay, now I can move on and look somewhere else, as opposed to I'm blocking, there's the whistle.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Trey Smith, of just the cadence of here's the rhythm of the blocking scheme and what I've done my whole life, and bop, done. And now with Patrick Mahomes, it's you block, you let him go. Oh crap. He's
keep
still back
blocking,
there.
the play's still
okay,
going.
block,
Oh my God.
block. Did the whistle blow? No, I'm blocking. Whistle blew. Okay, great. I'm done blocking. Hey, look, let's run 20 yards down the field. Something good happened. And it takes some time to get used to that. And I don't think that happens with Burrow. I think some of the problems with Burrow can be that he holds on to the ball too long and tries to make plays. But that also isn't holding on to the ball too long and gaining depth and gaining depth and gaining depth and gaining depth. A little bit is holding on to the ball in the pocket and expecting the protection to be there, and then he can take a sack or whatever, where Mahomes is someone that drifts back and gains depth. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
hang out with us for the hour. We'll play a little Fact or Fiction. Usually Todd Lebo's in here with us, but Todd Lebo is playing the role of Seren Petro this week and hosting the program. So no Lebo in the 1 o'clock hour. But we have gone from Lebo to Sterling, which is a vast difference in terms of experience, knowledge, and lettuce on the top of the head. Just a complete different view across the board for Sterling coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. A couple of other clips that we'll play in no time here in this segment. But text says that was during the ESPN Sports Center at 5 that Orlando Brown talked about the depth. So there you go. That's why I couldn't find it. I was looking at a bunch of different things on NFL Live and other shows, but did not look at the 5 o'clock Sports Center. Interesting. Texas can't help but notice that Orlando Brown Jr. didn't mention anything about all those chips the tight end was having to do to help him, and running back. And I mean, that's what's fascinating. It's I mean, just the one of the two plays that they showed was Pacheco coming over and chipping Sweat, which allowed Orlando Brown to not really have to doing anything. To do much, allowing Orlando Brown to not have to do much on that particular play. Tex says, expecting help, not an excuse to be abused. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. But I mean, I would wonder if like a Jeff Schwartz offensive lineman would look at that play and go, yeah, there's a reason Orlando Brown lined up this far out with this, because if this defensive lineman cuts inside, he'll be in the wash with Joe Thuney. That's the way this blocking scheme is designed, something like that. That it's like you can't get beat outside. Like, hey, if there's 2 outs and you're stealing third, you'd better get there. You'd better get there, right? On this pass protection, you can't get beat to the outside. You have to make sure this guy does not beat you around the edge because you've got the help on the inside until, Joe Thuney goes down. But I don't disagree in the expecting help is not an excuse to be, abused, because that's where the athleticism or lack thereof showed up, is that when the guy, when Sweat cut inside, Orlando Brown wasn't quick enough to get there and just sort of lunged and missed him. Les Norman next.
If you've been dreaming of a new outdoor living area for your family to enjoy all year long, Summit Lawn and Landscape can help you design and build it. Paved and stone patios, outdoor kitchens, fire pits, outdoor fireplaces, landscape lighting, and retaining walls. Extend the comfort of your home outside with a new inviting and relaxing addition to your home. Sit by a fire, relax under the stars. Whatever you envision, Summit Lawn and Landscape can help. Call Summit Lawn and Landscape at 816-966-9434 or Summit Lawn.
Garage Floors, tell them Les sent you. Les, what's up, brother?
How you guys doing? My pumpkin pie haircutted freaks.
Oh, cool. I like that.
Wow.
What's that from?
It's Dumb and Dumber, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, Jason, have you seen a movie? Because I've seen Dumb and Dumber.
I've seen Dumb and Dumber plenty of times.
About time you watch a movie,
I don't
dude.
know why I did not get that reference, but I like
neither.
it. I like it. I appreciate it. Brisco with a fresh new haircut.
You appreciate the movie?
I appreciate the reference.
Or the Dumb and Dumber reference?
I appreciate any movie
Both.
reference that Jason even briefly doesn't get.
Yeah.
That right there is
Yeah,
always a
both.
win for me.
Gotcha.
Both, yes. I thought maybe you were noticing Brisco's new haircut.
Thank you.
He got his ears lowered.
I did. I just sort of
Tightened
it up a little bit. Still got a lot of lettuce up top, though.
Little toit.
Yeah,
very
I don't ever rag on people's haircuts. Never.
What's the longest your lettuce ever got?
Oh gosh, I think I started like losing my hair noticeably at 19.
Really? Really?
Yes, it was a very, very sad moment, but I hung on through high school. So I think like when I was like 15 or 16, I was in the I'm not cutting my hair phase, but it would never grow long. It would just grow out.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was weird.
Wow.
So I've got this picture of these individual senior year of high school baseball pictures. And I'm forcing my hat down, and it's just it wasn't fitted. They didn't have really fitted hats back then, but it was like on the very last loop or that last little button.
Yep.
And my hair was screaming to get out of that hat, so it was quite embarrassing.
If you could just bring maybe a signed glossy of that next
Awesome.
week, I'll put it up in the office in there.
I have that photo.
Please.
I will do it.
Yes.
wait.
So what would you do in today's baseball? Because everybody's got the long hair, the facial hair you got. You'll take but everybody's got the long hair, the beards, the different mustaches that are going on in college baseball right now. That is, and even professional baseball, like that's the thing now. If you're a baseball player, you've got the long hair. You've got the hair that comes out of the
mullets are coming back.
Absolutely, and you've got some sort of facial hair. Even Bobby Witt, with how odd the mustache looks on him, he's still going with it. I mean, that's fine.
When I'm playing goatee, I have to be clean shaven. I can't do anything on the top. I would just have to be clean shaven and have a towel with me and go through a bunch of hats but I can't. I couldn't when I started shaving my head. I couldn't play without it because just the only thing I get is the bristly. And if I let it grow out now, I'm George Costanza. So I mean, it's all I get. I'll see an even worse version. George Costanza looks like an afro compared to me. So
and see, I'm the exact opposite. If I were to shave my head, I would look like Adam Silver. So
There
I
you
don't
go.
do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
You hold
No,
on.
imagine
I can see it a little bit.
Yeah.
We got to get you some glasses.
Look at the look at the ears,
I can see it a little bit.
the nose.
I don't.
Yeah.
I see it.
What do you see? Mick always says Bill Hader. Do you think Jason looks like Bill Hader?
Ish.
Ish.
I
Like
think
Adam Silver more?
closer
Thank
to
you.
closer to
Thank you. Yeah.
I think
yeah.
I might go closer to Bill Hader, honestly.
Well, I
don't
would rather
know.
be closer to Bill Hader than Adam Silver. Yes.
Yeah, that I think is fair.
I've got a few different people that have said that things that I look like in my life, but if I shaved my head, they would all be massively different.
That really would be a big change if
Yes.
you walked in here completely bald.
That's right. Did you watch the first 2 or 3 innings of the World Series game last night? Because
I watched
that's all
the
that was worth it.
I watched the last 5 innings. Yeah.
Last 5 innings, so it
Yeah.
was already toast at that point.
I mean, I was busy. I couldn't do anything
that's
until then.
good. You,
but
you have a life.
I
You're-
do.
You're allowed to not sit in front of the TV all day and wait for the game to start at 6 and then watch
I
it.
appreciate that. Get behind my wife, who tells me I'm not doing that. So, but I appreciate your permission as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
But not going to happen.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I mean, I saw it, and the whole pointing to the ring finger, and
I loved it.
the tweet from the other notable LSU athlete who was
Yes.
pointing to her finger.
Yes,
And
it was great.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I thought it was funny. I wish the game last night was a little more tense and had more drama to it, like it did on Saturday. Saturday's game was amazing,
Yeah.
and the 4-3 final with LSU winning. We didn't get that last night. Didn't get that on Sunday either. But I thought it was kind of funny. Back in the day, if Florida was doing what they were doing on Sunday, you would just hit the next guy with the baseball. You know?
Yes.
If up 15, they stole second, you just hit the guy that's up at the plate
Absolutely.
with the next pitch.
Yep.
And LSU didn't do that on Saturday. Instead, They did the same thing last night.
Yeah.
They were taking the extra base up 15, 16 runs. They're stealing bases. They're pointing the ring finger and everything. They're doing those things. And it's like, you know what?
It'll come back to you,
yes,
man.
turnabout's fair play.
That's right. That's
you know?
right. And it's a different generation. It's a different game now.
Then get us out. You know, you don't want me to steal, throw me out at second.
My son even said, you know, I used to not, even my son, who's part of this generation, he's 18 and was a baseball player as of last summer. And he even said, you know, I used to I hated the bat flips. I hated all the celebration stuff, but I'm kind of coming around because they're not fighting over it anymore. I mean, it becomes, you're celebrating yourself. You're not trying to show the other team up. And when it first happened, like anything, change is hard, and you transition into the new generation, the way they do things. And again, that's the way people watch baseball and accept it now. So instead of being, you know, the grumpy old man, stop flipping your bat. It's just, he's like, I'm getting used to it. I'm starting to enjoy it because it's not directly related to the other team and showing you up. It's just you're celebrating your own team.
There are baseball has come a long way from where the other sports have sort of got to, like football. I mean, there's a lot of trash talking that goes on in football, and there's a lot of, you know,
that's been part of the game for
exactly the body language that's there and standing over somebody.
That's part of football.
Absolutely. Basketball, you see that with the tapping on your head if you got dunked on, or pointing to holding your hand to the ground if you're short, you know, or staring at a guy, or doing the different celebrations that are there on the court. And baseball hadn't really had that, except for like you can celebrate with your team when something great happens. But as far as like a bat flip, well, now you're showing the pitcher up, and now the pitcher's getting mad. But the flip side is happening too, and I see the hitters, you know, they have to take it as well. For instance, like Paul Skeens for LSU, he did not pitch last night, but when he strikes somebody out to finish an inning, he walks off the mound staring at the guy. The whole time he's walking up, he's just staring at the guy walking back to the dugout with this wry smile, like, you suck. Like, really, you thought you were going to hit against me? Like, he is as cocky as anybody in baseball. Like, Dylan Cruz is as talented as anybody in baseball, but the cockiest you saw of Dylan Cruz was last night pointing to his finger.
Yeah.
That like he doesn't play the game that way. Just people play the game different ways.
Yeah.
Skeens is incredibly cocky and is in your face. And I think part of that mentality is what helps him on the mound too, because he's throwing one-on-one, and it's like, you know what, bleep you.
Yeah.
Bleep you. You're my enemy right now.
Yeah.
And you know what, I struck you up.
You'd hate it, but say someone gets drafted that's on an opposing team. Say somebody, he did that over the course of this season, which it was many players that he did that to over the course of the season. You hate him. Oh, I can't stand that guy. He's an arrogant, you know what. And then you're drafted, you're on his team, and then you're playing defense behind him, and he does it. You're like, yeah, that's my boy right there. That's so.
Hey, let's get the bats going. Let's go.
Yeah, you can't take it personally. It's competition. And look, let's also remember where Skeens comes from. I mean, he was at the Air Force.
Yeah.
You know, to even go to the Air Force Academy, you've got to be pretty mentally strong, academically, intellectually, a stud, and then be an athlete. And he was kind of skinny, like tall and lean then, and he worked out and built himself up. He built himself into that first pick here in a couple weeks. And so there comes some competitiveness and along with that. And, you know, they showed shots of him those whole last two innings in the dugout. And you've got these freshmen coming up and hugging him, and these little guys who that guy's like 6'4", 140 standing next to, I mean, the guy's a beast, and he's proven his worth and all that. So, you know what? Get better. Don't strike out next time.
Absolutely.
How do you get better at this game? You compete against the best, and you learn how to adjust, and you learn how to beat them. So either you want to be better at this game and face the best, or you're just going to get swallowed up.
If he pitched for the Royals, I would love him doing that.
What about
but if he pitched for, you know, the White Sox or Twins or just, I don't know, any other team that the Royals would go against, and he did that and walked off the mound and stared at, you know, one of the, like, oh, you son of a gun. Like, oh man, don't show that person up. I do wonder if he does that when he gets to the big leagues, like his debut, and he's fresh and he's what's up, Fish?
It won't
you
be.
know,
It won't be.
If
that
he'll be staring down Mike
Trout.
Trout, you know, is like, you know, staring, smiling, cocky at Mike Trout walking back to the dugout.
Right. Once he establishes himself, then he'll do that because it'll be who he'll be. But as the rook coming up, and you know, it won't be long if he stays healthy. It won't be long before he's in the big leagues. But you'll have guys that will tell him, and if you have guys that don't tell him, you'll have guys that will hit a ball 500 feet off him. And they'll go around the base just staring at him the whole time like, hey, buddy, what's up? Yeah, I remember that World Series. Yeah, how you feel now? Kind of thing.
Well, you also might have an Angel, like if in this specific example, you might have an Angels pitcher that sees that guy show up Mike Trout, and the next pitch, that guy gets plunked with the baseball.
Yeah.
And then that guy goes to Paul, like, hey, man, hey, chill.
Yeah.
All right, Rook.
That's right.
Chill. Have that competitive, that's Mike Trout. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing this pitch right here because of that.
Because of you.
Yeah. Go be
risking DL time because of your.
Go be a badass, but let's earn it.
Yeah, you got to in the big league level. You got to earn it, but again, you also have to be like, oh, that guy's an idiot. He's doing all this. Look, rookies are rookies, and they have to learn some hard lessons too. So I've learned. As long as it's not like personal crazy Clemens throwing a bat at Mike Piazza kind of thing, be yourself. Go do your thing. And if you've got to complain about it, either keep it to yourself or go up and hit a bomb off him or get a hit. And then you can go to first and show him up if you want to or whatever. But, just be competitive and do your thing. Be yourself.
Yep, go get him the next time. It's like in Rookie of the Year with Henry Rowan-Gardner. When he got on
you
first.
brought this game up, or that movie up a few times.
Yeah, when he gets
it's a regular.
When he gets walked, because the guy's got no strike zone, and he gets over to first base, and he's like, pitcher, 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 pitcher's got a big butt, and the pitcher hits the next guy, and he goes, that was for you, kid. And Rowan-Gardner was like, oh. It's sort of slinks down. It's like, yeah, that guy just wore one in the back because of what you're doing right now.
Right.
You're a punk.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, are they going to be mad at him? But no, he kept doing it because Rowan-Gardner didn't give a bleep. Didn't care about what you thought. Didn't care about he scored a run.
That's right.
He was very slow, and the guy behind him was like, underlay, which is great.
You love that movie.
It's a good movie.
It is.
It's a good movie.
He watches that every time he thinks about seeing Dumb and Dumber. He just rewatches Rookie of the Year.
And it's a good movie and real.
Totally real. Totally real. Like, absolutely. The pitching coach that doesn't know what he's doing and all of those things. And
I actually purposely broke my arm when I was a kid just to see if that would come to life.
Yeah. I just would every night I would just punch myself in the vocal cords, just hoping that maybe that would help the radio thing, and it did.
I'm going to be a singer. I'm just going to punch myself in the vocal cords.
I think it might have backfired, actually.
Maybe. We recently found out watching the movie. So my son plays for a team called the Prospects. So we have the Pirates logo and everything for the Prospects. Anywhere's number 17.
No pressure there on a kid.
I know, right?
7 years old playing for the Prospects.
Well, you know what? You want to play? You want to play. You know what? You're up there as the
guys. I have some breaking news really quick. I have some breaking news from the world, not from sports, from the world. To follow up on something we talked about last week, Wheel of Fortune has a new host.
Okay. Is it Vanna White?
It's not Vanna White.
Okay.
Is it Sajak's daughter?
Not Sajak's daughter. But when I say who it is, you guys are going to go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That was my reaction, at least. That makes sense.
Okay.
Will Arnett.
Ooh, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
No, this one's not fun. This one just makes sense.
On the Lego show.
Ryan Seacrest.
I'm not excited about that.
No, who is excited about that?
Yeah.
I'm not
either.
I'm not excited about that. I'm kind of now
cool.
like as a veteran contestant on the Wheel of Fortune.
Right.
I'm not excited about that.
Yes. Did they at least ask your opinion? They go through everybody that competed?
They took me after I won. They said, first things first before we write you your check. Who do you think should be the next host of Wheel of Fortune? And I threw out some suggestions that I'll keep to myself.
Yes.
But no, they didn't take it seriously because Ryan Seacrest was not on that list.
They told me that you would have been the next host if you had hair. Which I thought was really messed up.
And if I would have got the usual hangout in the final round, which I didn't get. If I'd have got that, they would have listened, but I didn't. So it's
your chance to schmooze
disqualified
there.
myself.
Disappointing.
It's okay.
Yeah,
we're still fans of you. We're still fans of you.
I was fans of my trip to Costa Rica.
There you go. That's
and my $12,000 in cash. So
that's awesome.
Either way,
that is awesome. Now, was it as lavish as like it sounds like when they take care of you?
It was ridiculously amazing. It was a 6-star buffet for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner every day for 8 days.
That sounds okay.
It was unbelievable. The only negative is that in 8 days we were like on traveling. We were at 5 different resorts over 8 days. But I mean, sitting in a hot tub at the base of an active Costa Rican volcano that had like my I think I've shared this. My wife can take a shower in lava where if it's a little remotely over,
he's saying she's that hot.
Yeah, she is that hot.
She's that hot,
which is why heat doesn't bother her. But yeah, she's like up closer up the mountain in that kind of hot tub, swimming in it, where I can't even touch a toenail in it. So we were at separate places. But yeah, to do that and to be sitting in one of those infinity pools overlooking lava rocked oceans and the tide coming in, and the cool thing is down there the temperature of the water stays the same year round. It doesn't go seasonal. So it was like 84 every day. And so you got the infinity pool, and you walk out to the sand, and then you're in the ocean. Oh my goodness, it's great. It's unbelievable.
And also now we know that the Norman family is basically the heat miser and the ice miser or whatever from that Christmas movie. I had no idea.
Is it a female thing though? Because my wife, the water is scalding hot, and I don't know how somebody can actually find that to be refreshing in any way, shape, or form.
Is there any chance that she just like takes a regular temperature shower, goes to the water heater, turns it to max, tells you, "Hey, Jason, it's ready for you again," and just keeps trying that every day?
Yeah, my wife's a toilet flusher sometimes with that. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes there's the
She's
tactical toilet flush.
But I just remember, like, you remember you don't like cold water, right? So just count the hours to your next shower.
Yes, you've got the chess game has begun.
So back to Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, back to Ryan Seacrest.
Who also
Snow
takes
miser.
very
Thank
hot
you, Curtis.
showers.
Thank you, Curtis. Snow miser. I'm embarrassed.
Very hot showers, Ryan Seacrest. Let's talk a little baseball.
Ryan Seacrest can't play baseball.
He cannot. I want to get into a bigger conversation, so we'll do that in the next segment. But this one I wanted to bring up just in a small discussion. We talked about Nick Prado yesterday a couple of times in an interview that we did, and just sort of discussing like that approach. He strikes out looking a lot.
Yeah. And fastballs
that seem to be like, that was right over the plate. Like that wasn't even borderline. That thing had a couple of inches of movement that it could have still gone inside, and it might have still been a strike. Like you watch that thing go right down. Like first pitch, if that same pitch is thrown first pitch, he's swinging. He's hitting it. That approach, like how do you do anything if you're Zumwalt or anybody with the Royals, because his line drive percentage is doubled from a year ago? His batting average to balls in play is .420, this year. So he's hitting line drives. So he's hunting pitches to drive, hunting pitches to barrel up, but he's so selective that even with 2 strikes, he's taking pitches that would be like, yeah, how do you watch that one go right down the middle? Is there something where you just, it ain't broke, don't fix it with a guy who's getting on base and hitting the ball hard? Or should you tweak and find ways to still maximize him hunting pitches, but with 2 strikes, maybe be a little more aggressive in not just sitting back and waiting for a specific pitch that, go and attack if something's close?
Well, it's great that he's hitting with balls in play, the .420, whatever it is. That's great. But the only time that massive amounts of strikeouts are acceptable is when a guy's going to drop 30 to 40 to 50 home runs. Then you're okay. That's okay. So, and again, it's great that he's doubling the production from last year. And so the first thing that you're trying to find out is he seeing the ball? Well, because his average on balls in play is so high, he's obviously seeing the ball, but he's either thinking too much or he's looking pitch instead of zone. And the best hitters look zone. You know what I mean? You have guys that will look, well, I'm not going to swing at a fastball because I'm not looking at a fastball. Those are guys that aren't as productive as they could be. I mean, he's got great production, but he's going to be even better if I've got 2 strikes, I'm expanding my zone. I'm not looking like, okay, this guy's going to backdoor slider me because he's done it, and then I freeze on a fastball. Because oftentimes when you just guess on an off-speed pitch, your foot gets up and you put it down slower. So your timing is off. And so you don't swing at it because the ball beats you because you can't get to it, or you're going to look bad or something like that. And so part of it is it isn't broke, don't fix it. But I would start working with him on 2-strike approaches to where you shut your brain down and expand your zone, or make an adjustment and still look for the pitches that you can drive, but don't be so selective where, okay, he might be seeing the ball so well that, that's a fastball. It's like got the corner of the plate, but I'm not going to swing at it because he might throw me something a little bit better that I can drive more. Baloney, man. Take that ball the other way. Hit a double down the left field line instead of, maybe in the gap or something like that. So it's there is a little bit broken, but there's still enough success that you don't have to stress about it. So you're not, hey, man, let's just make an adjustment and a tweak on your approach to it. But there's no approach mechanically. There's no approach timing-wise. He's doing everything fine. It's just a matter of start looking zone. He's a good enough hitter with good enough timing right now and good enough hands that you don't have to look fastball and not swing at a curveball. You don't have to look curveball and not swing at a fastball. Just think zone. And if you're not pulling off, you're not lunging out front, you're staying on the ball, then he should have enough confidence in him to say, hey, it's okay for you to look zone versus particular pitch.
So he's had about 28 more plate appearances this year than he did last year. Roughly the same amount of games, 4 more games played this year. So it's almost the exact same from a year ago to now.
Yeah.
So this year his batting average is up 80 points from 184 to 265.
Nice.
His on-base percentage went from 270 to now it's 349. So that's up 78 points. Slugging percentage was 386 to 416. So that's 28 points. So his OPS is up 108 points from a year ago. He's taking a lot of pitches, like strike 3 call, like looking has been just something that I've never seen this propensity for that happening. Yet when you look at the numbers, he's getting on base at 350. He's batting 265, and he's still slugging in the 400s. And if you're batting him leadoff, well, then, he's kind of doing what you want him to do. The strikeouts, certainly, if you are a little more aggressive and, like you said, looking zone instead of specifically looking pitch, because if you're going to put the ball in play a little bit more, less strikeouts, and even if that batting average to balls in play drops, but you're putting more balls in play over the course of the season, it's, could be a net positive that takes place. But whatever he's been doing, and this is where it's like, okay, do you get to the point if you're the Royals and say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? The guy's been in the big leagues for 100 games, and these last 53, he's getting on base at 350, even as a leadoff hitter and all that stuff. We're gonna let him be. We're gonna let him be, and he's got 5 home runs and 13 doubles in the 53 games. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, remember, hitting coaches are also psychiatrists, they're counselors, they're all these different kind of things. Because one of the biggest things about consistent everyday big league players is the mental that becomes more of the problem. It just manifests itself sometimes in the physical. And so it's all about phrasing. How do you phrase it? You don't go to Nick Prado and say, hey, man, there's something that we need to fix, because you don't want your leadoff hitter who's made all these improvements to start thinking, oh, I'm stinking it up right now, or they want more from me, or you get a hitter especially thinking, and you're setting them on a road to tank horribly. And so you phrase it in the sense of, dude, you're doing amazing. I am so proud of the adjustments that you've made, and you're doing good, so let's add to.
Yeah.
And so you're phrasing it like, you're doing an exceptional job. You're helping us in such a big way. You're such a big part of this lineup. Now let's help you get even better. That builds confidence in, hey, my work is being appreciated. I'm contributing to this team in a big way. Let's throw out the win-loss record. Let's forget about that. We already know that's going to be horrible regardless. And let's even build. And that gets a hitter a mental position on a team. A hitter, it puts them in the right frame of mind to not go south emotionally, mentally, in their cranium to, let's go even more. I'm doing great things. Let's go even more. And so they start to feel that positivity. It puts the right frame of mind in. It makes them feel confidence. That's what you need. If a guy is poor mechanically, I've said this many times, if you get a guy that is poor mechanically but confident at the plate, they're going to hit. In the big, it might be 250, 260, but if you get a guy that's super talented but is an emotional wreck and they can't figure things out and they're just can't get mentally calm, they're going to struggle. Even when their timing is good, their hands are good, they're staying back, their front side's in, their hips not flying out, they're reading pitches well, but they're not confident, they're going to be inconsistent with their timing. Their step's going to be wrong. Something's going to go wrong, and they can think themselves into second-guessing everything they do, and eventually, more likely quickly, they're going to go into a slump, and it's not physical.
Les Norman's our guest, breaking the norm. He's presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. The draft comes up on July 9th, and we looked at the Reds and the Orioles farm system and sort of how they were built with the top 100 prospects that they still have in their farm system, even though they're graduating a number of players to the big leagues. And We'll talk with Les Norman on the other side of the break. We'll get into a conversation that takes place with, as humans going from born to how we eventually develop our personalities and things like that. But I want to compare it to the draft. We'll do that next with Les Norman.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels, Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. All right, so let's look at the whether it's the draft or just farm system prospects, things like that. There's a lot of ways of going about it. I talked about the Reds and the Orioles earlier in the show, and the Reds at the beginning of this year throughout the season have had 9 players in the top 100 of prospect rankings. They've graduated 3 of them: Matt McClain, Andrew Abbott, Ellie De La Cruz.
Ellie Deli.
Or Ellie Dylan Cruz. What if you combined Ellie De La Cruz and Dylan Cruz? It'd be Ellie Dylan Cruz, and that would be the greatest baseball player that ever lived. Anyway,
Fun name game. Write that one down.
there you go. Anyway, so they've graduated 3. The Orioles have 10 different guys that have showed up in the top 100, and I added Adley Rutschman, even though he wasn't in this year. He was number 1 last year, but still, he's a huge part of that team and how they're building.
Yep.
And what was fascinating to me was seeing that the Reds, of their 9 guys, 4 were drafted, 4 were from trades, and 1 was international. The Orioles' 10 guys, all 10 were draft picks. Like, none of the top 100 players they have were from a trade piece or an international. It's all draft picks. All draft picks. The Reds got 2 of their guys they've got 6 guys still in the top 100. 2 of them came from the Luis Castillo trade. 1 of them came from the Sonny Gray trade. 1 of them came at the trade deadline last year for Tyler Mahle. That was a small little trade that didn't get much run at all. That he had a 4.5 ERA with a 1.3 WHIP and was traded to the Twins, and they sent back Christian Encarnacio Strand, who's at AAA mashing with over 1,000 OPS, who's expected to hit 30, 35 home runs a year when he gets to the big leagues. So it was fascinating to see the different ways. It's draft, trade, international free agent, Orioles, draft picks. So when I bring up the Chiefs, and I've talked about this less with Jalen Watson and L'Jarius Sneed, and I've said one of the confidences that I have in the Chiefs drafting is that their coaches and the people around them, I believe, can develop the player.
Right.
And I'm not saying Jalen Watson is interchangeable, that if you drafted somebody else in the 7th round, they'd be doing the same thing that Jalen Watson would be doing. But I think the Chiefs can draft for traits and then develop and teach so that a Jalen Watson in the 7th round that has certain height and traits and markers that the Chiefs want, and then you teach him, you put him in the right position, and you go, how'd they get this guy in the 7th round? Well, if somebody else would have drafted that guy in the 7th round, he may not be Jalen Watson. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, as we look at baseball and the draft and the farm system and things like that, and we say, well, look what the Reds are doing with these guys. If the Royals had drafted Matt McClain instead of Mazzucato, Matt McClain's up at the big leagues in the Reds right now and doing what he's doing, and Mazzucato's at single A, and he's on the IL. Nature versus nurture. As we talk about people in life, are you born that way? Is it your surroundings? It's probably a little bit of both, but as you look at farm systems and drafting and things like that, we can say that, well, the Royals have the number 2 pick. But is it interchangeable with names because if they're not developing it? So if you're looking at the draft and you're looking at players coming up, is it more nature? Is it more nurture and the organization around them as to why we see the Orioles have 10 players that have showed up in the top 100? The Reds still have 6 players in the top 100 right now, and the Royals have 0 in any top 100 rankings for prospects, and they've been drafting pretty high for a while.
This is where I have Brisco lean over and hit me in the head with a bat.
Sorry.
Because that's going to be...
And a water bottle.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the I'm going to give you the best answer while I'm semi-punch drunk here. I still have yet to figure this out. I mean, is it Billy Beane that needs to go find the intelligent Ivy Leaguer or Stanford dude that is all about the numbers to help him understand how to manage a team and do something different, have the guts to do something different? Mm-hmm. I don't understand why. We were talking about this at the break. Back in my years of playing, all these first-round number 1 pitchers that the Royals have taken over the years, and how many of them either didn't come close to sniffing the big leagues or got there, but they were a September call-up at best, or maybe they got a year or 2 in, but just didn't do well. So I follow, like the Chiefs. I mean, in every sport, I'm watching the draft and then writing some stuff down, putting that on the shelf for 5 years, and seeing where they're at in 5 years. And I'm seeing the same thing, 10 players in the top 100 for the Orioles.
Yeah.
And you wonder, okay, so you've got those front office people that can see talent. Many scouts can see talent, but it's really what they're going to look like in 4 years. And you can say the words development, and you can talk about development, but the Royals have really done a poor job. They have done a bad job over the years, and that's not me ragging on the one team that gave me a shot. That's statistically truth.
Yeah.
It's what happened. And so instead of now watching the players and talking about how they need to look at they need to learn how to develop players. They need to learn how to develop pitchers and how to extend their careers and how to help them in the big leagues. But now maybe we need to start looking at somebody in the front office like the Baltimore Orioles organization. What are the characteristics of their developers?
Mm-hmm.
How are they drafting? Let's start drafting the drafters. Let's start paying attention to the people and follow their modes and methods and say, hey, what are you seeing? What are your processes? What are you going about? What's your checklist or what you're looking for in a player? Because after all this time, if we're not developing and we don't have a farm system that we should have had back when the Damons and the Beltrons were in it and some of those studs, then we're just continuing to be the hamster on the wheel that's not jumping off to a bigger and better wheel.
The two organizations combined have 10 players that were drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And of those 10 players, well, let me check that. They have 14 players that were drafted. I apologize. 14 players that were drafted. And of those 14 players, 9 of the 14 were first rounders.
Mm-hmm.
You had 3 second rounders and then randomly 2 fourth rounders. No third, no fifth, just 2 fourth of the guys that have showed up in the top 100 of the prospects. And in the first round, it's, there are some 1-1s. Jackson Holliday, 1 overall to the Baltimore Orioles. Adley Rutschman, number 1 overall to the Baltimore Orioles.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. Heston Kjerstad, number 2 overall to the Baltimore Orioles. So that's 3 guys that have shown up at number 1 in all of baseball prospects, and then also the guy who's top 40 and is at AAA, OPSing at 1,000 right now with 15 home runs and 15 doubles and getting on base at 380 at AAA right now in Heston Kjerstad. For the Orioles, who are 4 games behind the Rays, and they still have guys getting ready to make their move. Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad.
They're just not getting to the big leagues. They're competing and contributing in a big way.
When they
it's
get
not
there.
about, look, getting to the big leagues, if you stay healthy, is not hard. Baseball is hard, but you get your pool of everybody that's talented at the game. From that pool of players, it's not as hard getting there as it is to staying there. I always, Seren is always so kind and encouraging to me, like, hey, man, you got there. You got there. And,
yes.
and he's right. And I don't mean to be self-deprecating. I got there. There was hard work and a lot of things to come into place. But that wasn't as hard. Hitting 380 in AAA and getting called up was fun. But when I was in the zone, it wasn't hard. Just showed up. Oh, there's a fastball. Boom, hit, But getting to the big leagues and then staying there for more than 2 years, holy moly, as a 25th, 26th round pick, it is really hard. And so, again, it just takes me back to why you were saying that. I want to start picking the brain of the people like the Orioles scouting department. I want to know, if I'm the Royals, I want to know what they're seeing. And granted, we've got a new staff and some new people are coming in, and so it might take another 3, 4, 5 years to see what these next few drafts are going to bring up, and some of these guys that are hurt in the minor leagues and this whole raid the zone kind of thing. Are these guys going to develop and help the big league team in the next couple of years? But my goodness, start paying attention to success. Start figuring out how they're going to do it. Humble yourself a little bit and understand, okay, they're seeing success. How are they seeing success? They're not just getting lucky. There are players that get lucky or organizations that get lucky on players. But when you have 10 in the top 100, how many big league teams are there, Brisco?
30. I just looked it up.
10%. 10%.
Nailed it. Nice job, Josh.
The Orioles have 10% of the top 100.
Okay, now that's, let me do that math. That's pretty good, Les.
Thank you.
Well,
it's crazy.
But that's over the last year or two, and the Reds had 9, so that's 90. That's 1 out of every 5.
That's 28 more teams that get the last 81%.
Yes. But currently, right now, those 2 teams combined for 12 players in the top 100 still, the Reds and Orioles, even with the guys they have graduated. That's graduating Rutschman, Henderson, Rodriguez, Westberg, graduating McLean, Ellie De La Cruz, and Andrew Abbott. What's left between the two is the number 1, 15, 19, 28, 40, 59, 67, 71, 80, 91, and 94.
Yeah.
Still between the 2 organizations. But it's, and the Orioles haven't had the big pieces to trade away, which is why they've done it more through the draft. The Reds have had a couple of pieces. Luis Castillo. You know, they traded Luis Castillo at the trade deadline last year. But here's the thing about what they got in return. They end up getting two guys that right now are currently ranked in the top 30. The Reds did. Number 19, Noelvi Marte from the Mariners, and right now number 28 in all of baseball prospects, Edwin Arroyo. But they traded for them last year. Currently, Marte's at AA and Arroyo's at single A. So they traded Luis Castillo, but they traded high upside guys that were younger. They weren't looking at, well, we want guys that's closer to the big league level that, you know, maybe a lower ceiling. I've already heard J.J. Piccolo a couple times talk about, well, we'd like to look at guys that are closer to being ready at the big leagues when they're talking about trade deadline stuff. It's like the Reds are now competing this year. But a year ago when they traded Luis Castillo, they took guys that were 19 years old at low A and single A. And now those guys are top 30 in all of baseball. Now, they've done a good job developing them, and maybe that's what J.J. Piccolo's worried about is, all right, we can't develop right now. We know that. We've got an issue. We've got to figure that out. But right now, until we figure that out, I got to get guys that other teams have developed and maybe be closer to the big leagues. So I've got to self-scout.
Yeah, you got to do simultaneous work.
I got to understand where the weakness is, and I'm not just going to beat my head against the wall knowing what the weakness is to say, no, this time's going to be different.
Right.
Until I get to step back and completely revamp whatever's going on in the minor leagues and development, I got to let somebody else develop it and then trade for them, which I totally understand because the Reds have clearly done a better job at developing these guys and in a position to play. And I'm with you. I don't know how much it's nature or nurture. I don't know, if Bobby Witt were on the Orioles or the Reds, if he'd be, this amazing stud all-star that could be, the best player in baseball or something like that. Whereas with the Royals, he's trying to get to 300 on base percentage, and he's more of a free swinger. I don't know. Maybe with another team, he might be worse. He might be free swinging, and the team might be like, you just swing away. I don't know what these guys would look like. Like Gunnar Henderson was taken in the second round, number 42 overall by the Orioles in 2019. Same drafted Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt went number 2. Gunnar Henderson went number 42. They're both up with the big league club. And Gunnar Henderson was the number 1 prospect in all of baseball at the beginning of this year. They're kind of the same in terms of production, except Gunnar Henderson is getting on base a lot more. But if Gunnar was a Royal, would he be up with the big league club right now? It's
you'd have a heck of a shot,
right? But it's not great to say I don't know, but I know with the Chiefs, I'm really confident with the Chiefs that when they draft somebody, there's a decent chance that guy turns out to be good because I trust in the people and the coaches around them and the front office and the organization overall that they're going to put people in position to coach, and Andy Reid's going to demand that of the coaches, and they've got certain criteria they want to see from their draft picks and how they'll get the best out of them. And it's been proven year over year over year. There's mistakes that are made. Mistakes are always made. Every single one of the Orioles draft picks have not been awesome. All right, they've missed on a few guys along the way.
Let me just throw this out there. I'll let you guys discuss it at a later time, whatever. Take Andy Reid, his coaching style, his personality, the respect that he has from his players. Okay, take that and forget the history and all the wins and the Super Bowls and all that. Just the way he approaches it. Every single player, almost every single player that has played for Andy Reid loves him. And he's not Mr. Nicey Nice Guy. He's just never been. Now, he's also not a jerk either. He develops players. He teaches you how to lead by example. He teaches you how to lead verbally. He has his coaches, and people respect him and want to work for him, and people want to play for him, and they follow him anywhere, okay? Not record-wise or as long as he's been doing it, but his coaching style, compare a Royals manager of the past to how good Andy Reid leads.
Ned Yost. I mean, I feel like the players loved him. But
okay, and what did Ned Yost end up doing in 2014 and 2015?
They won a lot of games
and
put
two
up
World
some,
Series
put up some
and
pennants.
1 win and put up some pennants. And it's only been that many years, and it's maybe not fair to Matt Quatraro because he's only been here a year. But besides Ned Yost in that season, go back further than that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it hasn't been many. Yeah. So is it just the player development style? Is it the coaches or managers that we bring in? What is the answer? Because I'll tell you what, I'll break my back for somebody that I respect no matter what my level of talent is.
Well, I think also this is where the organization comes in as opposed to like the NFL organization where that head coach can make such a massive difference of what the expectation is from the other coaches, because when you draft a player, he's with that big league club. He's with Andy Reid. You draft a player with the Royals, and you've got coaches at single A, you got coaches at extended spring training, you got coaches at high A, you got coaches at double A, you got coaches at triple A, you got roving instructors throughout the minor leagues. You got a lot of different people that when a player is coming up through the minors that they have talked to, that they're around, that they've been coached by, that they've been taught techniques, how to approach the game, the psychology of it, all of that different stuff.
There might be turnover at the major league level by the time you make it from a draft
and then turnover with the roster or organization, I should say, and the organizational philosophy where the Royals are starting to change their baseball and pitching organizational philosophy of raid the zone and setting up in the middle of the plate and just simply throw the baseball over the plate instead of working corners and all of that, where the Chiefs have had their coaches, for the most part, in place, and when you draft the guy, he's right up there with the coaches.
So then that big league manager and coaching staff need to be involved in that minor league system in spring training as much as possible. All right? You have to be able to buy in. You can't have your A-ball guys disconnected from the big league guys because you're right. There's no minor leagues in football. You're drafted, and if you're good enough, you're going to play, if you're healthy. And so there is a microcosm of space between those two. But if that's the case, then if development is about picking the right leaders so they buy into the process, along with the technical stuff to protect a pitcher's arm and all those different things, then at the big league level, you have to start getting more involved in your minor league guys and get some face time with them and help them understand. You got from A-ball up to the big leagues, you got to get them all to buy in.
Yeah, I don't know how easy that is to do because there's a lot of voices.
But history's going to continue to repeat itself if you don't try something different. And again, if I got a guy at the A-ball level that's buying into the leadership at the big league level, then I'm going to be a man of integrity. I'm going to bust my tail. I'm going to work hard. And some of those guys that do that just won't be good enough. They won't put up the numbers. But somebody will. Yeah. Somebody will. You've got enough players. The percentages say somebody will. And by the time they get there, they're already bought in 3 years prior when they were in A-ball and then double A and then triple A.
And it's also the buy-in part is really fascinating because it's the buy-in is baked into the buy-in is the trust in the organization that they have the best interest for you. And if I keep doing what they're teaching me, that's going to result in me getting the best out of my abilities as opposed to the story that came out last year of a number of Royals in the clubhouse that are aware of players that went to different teams and they have found success.
My most beloved manager that I ever played for was not a Royals manager. It was Brian Graham, AAA with Buffalo, and it was in the Cleveland Indians organization. But the Cleveland Indians organization took care of their players. Their salaries were higher. Their development, the way they went about things was different. But, I mean, and Mike Hargrove was the big league manager at the time, and when we were in big league camp, he worked directly with a lot of the minor league guys, and he worked with our strength and conditioning guy, who was this military guy that beat the tar out of us every day, and I've never puked more in a spring training than that one season with Cleveland. But I was playing for Brian. I respected him so much and just loved that guy. And he let the players police it, and we ended up winning a AAA championship that year, which is not at the big league level, but it's a AAA championship. Yeah. Now, granted, we had a really good team when Bartolo Colon and Jarrett Wright and Richie Sexton and Damian Jackson and, Jeff Mantle. I mean, holy moly. Jeff Mantle hit 20 home runs his first 100 at-bats. That doesn't hurt either, but the bottom line is that was a guy to this day. I had him on last year on my radio show, and to this day, not just a manager, but one of the most respected father figures in my life was that guy because of the way he went about his business. And that was during a time where Cleveland won a lot.
Yeah.
Next week, remind us to ask you for some Bartolo Colon stories.
Oh, I've got a few.
I figured you might.
Yeah.
Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. Les, you're the man. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk next week, bud.
Love you guys.
Love you more.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Men, summer is here. It's a time to vacation, get outside, and enjoy.
30 years until that whole thing is figured out. Because the only way to know would be, can you go to an alternate universe where the Reds, the Orioles, the Royals, those farm systems are completely flipped, and then to see, okay, well, what happened with this guy if he came up under this farm system? What happened with this guy when he was developed by that team? Well, you know what? This guy was immune to any other team's development. He was going to be this guy regardless. That guy's Sterling Holmes next.
Attention everyone, are you ready for the summer heat? Let ProBuilt Pool and Patio get you started on your summer prep. As the largest provider of fiberglass swimming pools, we have the biggest selection and offer the
Who made some snide comments. Maybe that's why we drove around the stadium, just to tick him off.
With Jason Anderson.
You know, this is ridiculous. Next question.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, so coming up on August 14th, we've got the annual Sports Radio 810 Listener Golf Tournament, Prairie Highlands Golf Club. Monday, August 14th, 9 a.m. shotgun start. That is at Prairie Highlands in the western edge of Olathe for just $108.10 per player. You get golf cart, drink tickets, breakfast, lunch, goodie bag, and the opportunity to win amazing prizes. It is not $108.10 per foursome. If you thought that, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
It's $108.10 per person, which is still a great deal.
Great deal.
Just a great deal. Now, if it was $108.10 per foursome, it would be the best deal ever, and we're not going to give you that, but we are going to give you a great deal. Also, there will be 8-10 personalities out there, like Josh Brisco.
That's me, baby. I'm going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Bells on.
The Border Patrol and the Zone. I like that show. They'll be broadcasting live from the golf tournament there. Registration now open. Head to 810whb.com/golf to register your foursome today. Space is very limited, and the foursomes will be reserved and booked in the order they are received while space lasts. Sterling, you playing in the golf tournament? You hanging out there? Are you one of the personalities? Are you going to be at different holes there? Are you going to be giving away cool prizes, just riding around on a golf cart?
No one likes my personality. So I might play. I might try and talk my way into playing.
Good for you.
I've always wanted to play Prairie Highlands.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about this. So
It's a great deal.
If I can play,
just
for free though, with what money?
You and
I was going to say,
Mick.
just get three guys together, come up with $108.10 a piece.
Yeah.
But not me. So they're paying about $180 a piece.
Yeah,
Or
I can do that.
Don't do the math.
I'm gonna say $137 a piece. That seems about right.
So
Divide by the
108 by
remainder.
10, you divide by 3. It's about 36
By 10?
bucks. Yeah, about $36 to for each person to pick up for you to be
so
a free ride.
144.
$144.13.
Boom.
So you're looking to
Just find three guys that want to pay
mooch, yes.
$144 bucks to play Prairie Highlands with Sterling.
Yeah, I'm a frugal man.
we call ourselves Sports 104 Radio. It's a weird place for us to put the number. I don't know.
Sports Radio 144.
144.
And
There it
13
is.
cents.
Sports
13.
Radio 1443.
You're listening to 144.13,
Yeah.
the Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Well,
What?
that's an odd way of naming it.
doesn't make any
Is that the
sense.
legal ID? That's
Definitely
weird.
not.
I bet you can go on Twitter and find a couple of three people that would pay $144 to play golf with you.
And 13 cents.
You know
Couldn't
what?
you cover the 13 cents?
I will bring the beers.
It's 39
They're,
cents.
they're included, man.
Well, I know.
Okay.
That's part
And
of
I'll get you on Prairie Highlands.
And you know what? You get a cart to drive around too. How about that? That's
Sterling
on
will
me.
get you a cart.
It's on me. I got you some drink.
Jason's gonna get you a cart.
I'm going to give you no, Sterling. I'm
okay.
playing the role as Sterling.
I thought you were trying to get
Yeah.
your beak wet.
Projecting for me.
Yes, I get you breakfast. I'll get you lunch. I'll get you taken care of. You just need to take care of my tab.
I will also bring the snap hooks. Drives, the snap hooks. Yeah, yeah.
I got that. I didn't
big
think
golf
you were.
guy.
I didn't think you were going fishing.
Yeah.
Just
I'm gonna bring the
assume-
snap hooks. We got some bastard catch over here.
Could you get us a welcome bag? You think, Stu? Me and my two friends.
I think I could swing that for you.
All right. Well, and it says here you can personally throw a quick left hook at Sterling Holmes. So I'm actually in. I'll pay for anyone who wants it.
Yeah, I'm now in as well. You got two of the three people that need to go and pay
This is awesome. This is gonna be great.
Dylan back there, you
Dylan's
in?
in. Yeah, of course, man.
We got a foursome right here.
You think the three of us wouldn't pay $144 to play this great golf course and punch you in the face?
Yeah, without
Well, I didn't
without
see
being
face.
arrested.
Not in the face or hair. Okay.
I can't punch your hair.
I think it would be like punching a porcupine. The hairspray that requires its quills to stand.
Zero hairspray.
I love that the two things he
Zero.
protected were the face and the hair.
It's the only two good
You
things
can
about
punch me in my neck. I may die. Punch me in my neck. Punch me in the chest, below the waist, wherever you want to punch me. Just not the hair.
Well, I want to look good. If I'm going to die, I want to look good in my casket.
Open casket.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, great.
Sterling's a big open casket guy.
Yeah, that is true. You would. There's no chance it wouldn't be an open casket.
No shot, dude.
He would actually haunt the person that did his hair if they didn't do it right.
Yes, 100%. Oh man, that's what I
You
want.
messed up the coif.
Sterling, I
It
hope
was
you.
not perfect.
I hope you live a long and wonderful life, but I hope that when you pass, whoever does your hair really beefs it.
Just messes it up.
I hope that you have like a bad buzz cut in your coffin.
Hold on, he didn't want the bowl cut? I didn't know. I just combed the hair straight down. He had bangs.
I'm gonna work really hard to outlive you, which is gonna be tough given the diabetes and everything.
You're not.
So I can be there to ruffle your hair at your open casket funeral.
I will haunt you so hard.
Yeah.
I dare you.
I'm going to try to outlive you too. I think everybody should try to outlive the person next to it. You got 20 years on me, so I'm in a rough spot.
I think you're good. I think
really,
yeah.
No.
I think you and Dylan are going to tearfully attend funerals for me and Sterling. Hopefully not together. Was it like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson who died like on the same day? Thought they each have been outlived by the other. That's how me and Stu are going to do it.
No, that's crazy coincidence.
Tontine? Is that what it's called?
It's technically a tontine. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I'm gonna live longer than you guys while I inhale ribs in the break there. So,
we're inhaling ribs. I mean,
it's good. It's ribs. This is good for you, right? That's right.
Protein.
Yeah, goes right to the heart muscles.
There's no carbs in there.
That's a good point. No empty calorie. Every calorie there is filled.
Yeah.
There are no empty calories in that.
Filled with delicious
all
barbecue.
Filled calories. Sterling, welcome into the show, sir.
Thank you.
We'll play some Fact or Fiction coming up in the next segment. You know how to play?
I got a rundown.
Okay.
I got a rundown.
This itself will be addressed within Fact or Fiction. We're going meta early this week.
Which is great because we bring Sterling in, and in the middle segment, we play a game where he's only allowed to say 2 words, fact or fiction. Fact, fiction.
I hadn't even thought of that.
I know, that's why we did it.
Beautiful casting for this game.
Is that the casting? That's what we did.
Thank you.
We're all playing different roles. A lot of people playing different roles this week. Sterling's playing the role of Todd Lebo. Todd Lebo's playing the role of Soren Petro. Soren Petro is off in Europe playing the role of Josh Brisco. Josh Brisco's playing the role every day of Corey.
And then Friday, I'm playing the role of Todd Lebo, playing the role of Soren as I fill in for Lebo, filling in for Soren on Friday.
I'm a dude playing another dude.
That's what it is. It's some Tropic Thunder stuff. I've seen that movie. Jason.
Yeah,
I've seen that movie.
All right, yeah.
I had another reference that wasn't as good as that one, so I'm out. Actually, this is good work, Stu. Channel
Pumpkin
your
pie haircutted freak.
Channel your inner Robert Downey Jr. Really get into character. Not too far.
Not too much character.
Not too much.
Yep. I want to play the clip that we talked about before we switched to baseball with Les Norman. We were talking about the offensive line. We were discussing Orlando Brown and with the Bengals and the different media rounds that he made yesterday. Apparently the clip or the quote from Jordan Foote that we had read came from the 5 o'clock Sports Center yesterday, which is why I didn't find it. I was looking at a number of different shows. But we were talking about sort of the difference in Patrick Mahomes and blocking for him and other quarterbacks. And I'd said that I had remembered an offensive lineman, I couldn't remember who it was, that had discussed the adjustment in timing to block for Patrick Mahomes. And I thought it was the word cadence that he used of like block, and then, okay, now I can move on to the next thing. But that's not the thing with Patrick Mahomes, that it's not the way that you can do that. It actually happened earlier this year. And it was in February of this year, and it was Trey Smith. And Trey Smith was on a podcast with one of his guys in Tennessee. One of the media members in Tennessee has a podcast. He brought Trey Smith on after being a Super Bowl champion. And this is the clip I was thinking of in just the difference between what he was saying and changing up his style of blocking, because now you're blocking for Patrick Mahomes and the offensive line coach is teaching him. Here's that Trey Smith clip talking about just those differences.
And the arm talent, it's so special, man. But also his football IQ, the way he makes plays, decision making, like it's insane. And I know one of the things I had to do to adapt was like early on, especially in training camp. My coach would get on to me, just like get the egg timer out of your head, like you're working with one of the most prolific playmakers in the NFL. He's gonna extend the play, So plays where why okay, release the guy, the ball should be out. No. The ball might not be out. Pat might be rolling around, doing a spin, doing something crazy, and launching the ball 50 yards for a touchdown. That's just how he rolls. And for me, that was something I had to adapt and learn, to sustain my blocks, strain to finish. But, he makes it so easy sometimes, because whenever you have 15 back there, you always have a chance to win.
I wonder if that's a regular transition from college to the NFL. Or if that's something where, we started off the conversation because Orlando Brown was discussing the differences of blocking for Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Is that just general, like, okay, as he said, get the egg timer out of your head of block, okay, release the guy. Now it's block, keep blocking, strain to finish. He's making plays. Oh, look, it's 50 yards down the field. Is that just in general? Or when you're working with Patrick Mahomes, this is what the offense and this play is supposed to look like: 3-step drop, boom, get rid of the ball. Now we watch on film, this is what happened, and this is how it resulted in a 30-yard gain.
Yeah, this is fascinating because it's such different play styles. I get what Orlando Brown Jr. was saying, too, by the way. I know he's going to get roasted. It's fun to say, well, is Jerick McKinnon coming with you to Cincinnati? Is he going to be the actual bodyguard? But I think he brought up some good points. It's just different. Tom Brady, for example, why I'm intrigued to see how Donovan Smith does this year. Yes, Tom Brady is not as mobile as Mahomes, but he gets the ball out quicker. You just have to learn. It's an adjustment period. Every single quarterback is different. They have different styles. Yes, it's different from Mahomes to Joe Burrow and Tom Brady, but also Mahomes, as we all mentioned, he does extend plays, and he will make you look better. So it all comes down to who fits this offensive line best. I think Matt Verderame actually said it best. When you have Mahomes as your quarterback, you almost have more focus on the interior offensive line than the tackles. That's because those guys typically can hold their blocks longer, and Mahomes will make whoever is coming off the edge, they're going to miss. For the most part, they're going to miss. As long as you are steady up front in the middle, Mahomes can make almost any play a viable play. So I found that fascinating as well. The Chiefs seemingly have spent more on the interior than on the tackles.
Well, when you look at the average time to throw, Joe Burrow, out of the 24 qualifying quarterbacks last year, that had at least 50% of all these different dropbacks at Pro Football Focus, you can put in the different parameters there. Tom Brady at number one with average time to throw 2.31 seconds. Joe Burrow 2.51 seconds.
Is that second?
That's second. Yep, that's second. Tied for second with Trevor Lawrence. And that's not just, okay, the pressure is there. That's the average time when he took the snap to throw in the ball. It's not average time from snap to then pressure, and you have to get rid of the ball. 2.51 seconds. Patrick Mahomes comes in 16th out of the 24 at 2.85 seconds, so he's going to hold the ball a little bit longer. That 0.3 seconds is a lot. You know, you wouldn't think that it was a lot, but it is. There's a huge break from Patrick Mahomes and Hurts and Allen and Russell Wilson in that group to then dead last by almost a half second from second to last. Dead last to second last, almost a half second, is Justin Fields.
Huh.
Because I'm guessing he just gets the ball and he's running around back there.
He has the ability to stay alive for that long?
Just keep running back there.
And his line was a mess, so he was doing it a lot? Yep. That's interesting.
And as I'm looking through here, Lamar Jackson did not qualify this last year with that because of all the time that he missed. I bet if I pulled up 2021, he'd be up there. But I don't care about that. I just care about looking at the Burrow and Mahomes. And so, yeah, you've got a couple of guys. You brought up Tom Brady. It's a great point because Donovan Smith is now going to be maybe the Trey Smith of get the egg timer out of your head because block, okay, release, and block. The concern would be, boy, he had a lot of holding penalties last year. Yeah. Okay, well, now if he has to block a couple of ticks longer, is it going to be an unnecessary holding penalty that he thought, well, I haven't heard the whistle, so I've got to stay with this guy? I don't know. What's fascinating, though, is when you look at the pressure in the pocket and the percentage of pressure that turns into sacks. And this is where I wonder what it'll look like in Cincinnati versus what it looks like in Kansas City. Number one player in the NFL of pressure percentage that results in a sack is Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. 9%. And Joe Burrow's in the 20s. So more than 1 out of every 5 pressures to Joe Burrow results in a sack, whereas 9 out of every 100 pressures for Patrick Mahomes results in a sack.
And that's outrageous.
And it's not just like, oh, he can scramble really well, or he's Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields. Right. He's just a magician at sort of figuring out space, angles, distance between that, and how to sort of escape the different routes or the different lanes to get out of.
I brought this up before the Super Bowl last year. I brought it up with a lot of Eagles fans because everyone kept talking about the offensive lines and how the Eagles' offensive line was maybe the best in the NFL, this, that, and the other. I go, all right, but just to show you how good Mahomes is at avoiding pressure, how much this might not matter. Mahomes had less sacks than Jalen Hurts, and the drop-back numbers were astronomically different because Mahomes obviously throws more than Hurts, and Hurts missed a couple games. Just to put in perspective of how good Mahomes is at avoiding pressure, take the Eagles' offensive line, lauded as maybe the best in the NFL last year, fewer sacks than Hurts, and an obscene amount of more dropbacks. Mahomes is a magician.
And like the definition of elusive, like that's the difference between like Mike Vick or Lamar Jackson or whatever. You know, you see the examples of a guy getting away and then making a big play. Mahomes can obviously do that also. But to go back to like your question about the egg timer and to say, well, is that just coming into the league or is that specific to Mahomes? I have to think it's specific to Mahomes in part because the thing you always hear from rookies is, man, you just got to get used to the NFL speed. Everything's about getting faster. And when you're blocking for Mahomes, it's getting slower because it's not just that he's elusive and can escape or that he will not take a sack and then throw the ball away as soon as he realizes there's trouble. It's that he will be elusive, find a second or third life in that rep, and then throw the ball 40 yards downfield. And that is just, to me, something that has been a part of who he was in his first year as a starter. It was who he was in Week 17 against the Broncos that is still true to who he is today, that makes him such a dynamic player to watch where anyone would get it. If you're a diehard football fan and you're an alien who just landed watching your first football game ever, that guy looks different. I think it's all of those traits coming together.
And if you look at the pressure percentage that turns into sacks, and you look at the 50% rate of the same parameters that we got with the time to throw in the pocket, there were 24 quarterbacks there. When you look at those same parameters, it drops down to 19 because then you have to have a number of reps under pressure because then it doesn't matter if he had 5 reps under pressure. Well, that's not a real good indication. So 288 dropbacks, at least 50% of 288 dropbacks under pressure. There are 19 quarterbacks that show up on this. Mahomes is number 1 at 9.8% of all the pressures result in sacks. Dead last is Russell Wilson at 27%, 19th. Joe Burrow comes in at 16th. And so a couple of things there. One, is he just simply holding the ball too long when the play isn't there to try to find somebody else and wait, and then he gets sacked, so he's not really looking at, okay, that guy's not there, and Mahomes is like, all right, now let me figure some things out, and he's a magician. Or was it that, the Bengals offensive line was just that bad that Burrow wasn't able to find escape routes because a guy's right on him? Like, he wasn't going to escape from Chris Jones on third down in the AFC Championship game. He engulfed him, okay? That was the submarine when it got to 9,000 feet, was Joe Burrow, and Chris Jones was the pressure of the ocean, okay? It just imploded him. There was no escaping that. And I don't think Patrick Mahomes escapes that either. That was just whipping a guy at the right tackle and being a massive human being. Was it some of that? Where the offensive line was just that bad to where that's why...
It was catastrophic failures and not avoidable
that's why
ones.
23% of every drop or every pressure for Joe Burrow was a sack? Like, I don't know. The offensive line should be improved, but is that going to improve this year?
The offensive line, yes, is improved, but Joe Burrow is not known for being the most mobile quarterback. I think that's also a different... Mahomes, will not being a run-first quarterback, obviously very mobile. Josh Allen, to the same extent, not known as probably a run-first quarterback, but very mobile. Justin Herbert, to an extent, right, is not a run-first quarterback, but he's mobile. Joe Burrow doesn't have that in him. I'm not saying he's a statue back there, but he's not known as a mobile guy.
Bengals fans are going to love this clip when I tweet it out later.
I always compare him to Drew Brees. And that's, if you take that as a negative, I don't know how you take a Hall of Fame quarterback as a negative, but Drew Brees wasn't the most mobile quarterback, right? He wasn't the king of extending plays like Aaron Rodgers was early on in his career. What did he do? He was a very accurate quarterback, but under pressure, you can get to him. I think the same can be said of Joe Burrow. Yes, the offensive line needs to be improved, but if you notice what the Saints did a lot of times with Drew Brees, well, they gave him a great offensive line. They know his strengths. The Bengals are trying to do this. They're just not there yet.
Yeah. It's part of what became so incredibly frustrating and annoying of the first AFC Championship game with the Bengals, when those first downs were gained by Joe Burrow finding a way to escape the pocket and slip out of Melvin Ingram's grasp and slip out of Chris Jones's grasp and pick up a first down, and you're like, those two drives were 10 points. There were sacks that would have ended both those drives, and it resulted in 10 points in a game you lost in overtime. That is a tough pill to swallow.
And if Josh Allen does that, you understand.
Sure.
But again, it's baked into what Josh Allen is.
Right. But if Drew Brees or Joe Burrow does it, you're sitting here going, that one got away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a little bit different of like, okay, I can manipulate the pocket a little bit, slide around here, slide left here, and then deliver the ball. But like no, I'm actually going to escape through this arm tackle and get outside the pocket and run and pick up yards. Mahomes can do that. A number of quarterbacks can do that. Burrow can do that. He's not, like you said, he's not a statue. He's not Peyton Manning where there's pressure, he's just falling down in the fetal position. Like, he's not going to do that, where Peyton late in his career was like, pressure, all right, protect my ribs.
my ribs and my neck.
And my body, and I'll just lay here, and hopefully, as I'm a turtle, they'll just come over and just touch me. and that's about it, okay? I'm gonna be able to stay with my body connected, torso and legs all connected, not in two pieces. That's the goal. Yeah, I mean it's different ways of going about it, and I don't necessarily disagree with what Orlando Brown had to say. I just don't think it's going to be, and maybe he wasn't saying this. Maybe this is me taking his words and then editorializing or thinking he's saying more, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as, well, the concept in the plays we have, it's going to be more inside rushers and right at me, and I can control those things, and less on the outside. Like, I don't think it's just going to be that where he's never going to go up against a speed rusher that's going to be going on the outside of him, that he's going to have to get help. And while we joke that Jerick McKinnon is not following him to Cincinnati, Samaje Perine ain't there either. And Samaje Perine and Jerick McKinnon were two of the best pass-blocking running backs in the NFL last year. Perine's in Denver, which is, interesting because putting pressure on Russell Wilson, they now have a pretty good pass-blocking running back that's there. And I hate Perine because he's good. I think Perine's better than Joe Mixon, but I've said that for about a couple of years now.
Long enough for me to know that was coming. Before, like, as soon as you said Samaje, I think we're going to get a Joe Mixon dig.
We're going to get that he's better than Joe Mixon. I fear Perine in the backfield for the Bengals more than I feared when Joe Mixon was back there.
This Orlando Brown Jr. stuff is so fascinating to me because he's just a good left tackle, and
he's fine.
People either think he's just an absolute bum, or in his mind, he thinks he's the best left tackle in football. There's like no in between, and he's on all these shows. How many other, I don't know, throw it history, 8 to 10 left tackle in football gets this kind of hype, this kind of acknowledgement? I just find it very fascinating that Orlando Brown Jr. still is dominating, and good for him, I guess, dominating the news cycle for just being a good offensive lineman.
But if Mike McGlinchey was on ESPN, you'd be like, that's kind of weird.
I've said this, and I'll continue to say this. I think Orlando Brown is going to be better than what a lot of Chiefs fans think in Cincinnati. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be as good as what a lot of Bengals fans think in Cincinnati. He'll be somewhere in the middle, from the savior that finally they got their guy and Joe Burrow's not going to be touched, to Orlando Brown's never going to make a block. Yeah. Like, he can't block anybody. He's going to be me at left tackle, knees shaking and looking across the field at...
Well, that's a false start, at least. If your knees are shaking, that's at least a false start.
There's TJ Watt right there, and I'm lining up against them like, call an audible. I need a tight end over here, running back over here. I got no chance, guys. He's not going to be that.
He'll be fine.
Be fine. Don't worry, Joe Burrow's going to get rid of the ball fast.
Yeah. Hey.
No, he's going to pick me up and throw me into Burrow.
TJ, could you just stay there for just give me I don't know. Joe, what do you think? 2.5 seconds? 2.5 seconds, TJ. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then you can go.
He's the first left tackle to lead the league in sacks because he was thrown back into the quarterback so many times he actually dropped the quarterback himself.
Probably not going to be that.
Guy had 17 sacks this year. It was really good.
That's really valuable.
What's interesting...
that could make him the highest paid.
Not if you're the left tackle.
No.
What's interesting with him, specifically Orlando Brown Jr., is he is who he is. I said it when the Chiefs went out and got him. Everyone kept talking about how young he is and the potential for growth. I go, look at his skill set. This is not a guy, he's not getting quicker feet. I'm sorry, as he ages, he's not getting more athletic. He is who he is, and I think it's fair to say he is who he is. We saw him in year one. I think it's going to be the same thing for the Bengals. If Cincinnati fans are thinking, all right, he's still young enough, he's going to improve, again, I think you got to take a look back and say, his production is what his production is. It's not getting better. It might not get worse because he'll have more of the he's seen more now, right? But again, what he struggles against, that's not going anywhere. He's not getting quicker. That size, you don't want him to lose any weight because then he takes away from what he does best. Again, he was a finished product, in my opinion. The second he came here to Kansas City, people didn't want to listen to it then, but I think hopefully people understand it now.
And I mentioned that, maybe I'm putting words into his mouth when I said it's not going to be as easy as maybe he's making it out to be, and maybe he's not saying it's going to be easy. I'll do the flip side and give him props in that when he says, opposed to having to play a lot more in space with guys on my edge, guys have to rush through me, and then talks about Joe and the depth and everything, that there's probably some props to where he's acknowledging that I don't have the athleticism to be against those edges on the outside. So why it's maybe better for me or different is that guys have to go through me a lot more, which means I'm going to be able to dominate a lot more because I acknowledge my athleticism is not there. And I ain't going to be swift and nimble all of a sudden, overnight. So I get beat around the outside. I'm not dumb. I know that happens. I understand where I'm getting attacked. This system, less of my weakness is going to be exposed. So there's at least a compliment of being self-aware, and he's talked about, the athleticism and lack thereof. He's discussed that. I think he's self-aware of his abilities and what his weakness is. He may not be self-aware. He definitely isn't self-aware on what his value is on the open market with his said abilities, positive, negative, things like that.
Speaking of exposing weaknesses, Sterling's first factor fiction and Dylan's on probably like number 2, 3, or 4, something in that range. So I have you actually at -2.5 in this week's factor fiction, Jason. I just want you to know that.
Cool.
The bets come pouring in.
Look, it's not great value. It's not great value.
I was an underdog.
Oh, it just moved to 1.5. Interesting.
Wow, people are laying money on the underdogs.
Big money movement.
How about that?
I did live in Philly, and so I need one of those underdog masks. That
like Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce rocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won one Super Bowl, and that was really cool for them. But I'm afraid, Sterling, that your Philly luck's about to run out. There's also a really mean Philly question in here for you, too.
I lived there when they won. I moved back, and what happens? The Chiefs win a Super Bowl.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
Me and Sixers fans wish you'd move back.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Hey, Kansas City.
All right, hanging out here on this Tuesday edition, Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels, Sterling Holmes hanging out with us. We're playing a little fact or fiction. Sterling, you know how to play. It's very easy. You say fact or fiction.
True.
Yeah, close enough. That's
Got it.
About what I expected.
Agreed.
Concur.
Got it. Why didn't I just concur?
Could have just
Why
concurred.
didn't I just concur?
We got 12 questions, and in the rare occasion we made it a tiebreaker, there's a 13th. We'll get to that when we get there if we need it, which, again, I mean, who's to say?
Did you get the movie reference with why didn't I just concur, Josh?
No, sorry, I didn't. I was
Don't worry about
so laser focused on really making this the best fact or fiction we've ever done without Lebo. Sterling and Dylan here. Again,
fact or fiction.
All good. The line is set at you -1.5. That's where DraftKings is settled, but near even money. Got to give a little juice.
Fact or fiction, that line was from Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, that was early. What's his name? The actor.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, the good-looking dude.
He is
Yeah.
the good-looking guy. He is the good-looking guy.
Yeah,
That
so
is-
I managed
Good
to
movie.
avoid being asked if I had seen Catch Me If You Can the entire week that we were using it for content, and then
one day.
I thought I'd just slide away, and
Just one day.
now here we are.
We didn't do it entire. We did it one day.
I feel like we did it for a couple of days. We referenced it for a couple of days.
I think we referenced it the
with
next
other
day with
people
Matt
to-
Lane.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So we did it on a Wednesday, and then the next day I wanted to get Matt Lane's thoughts on it because we did it on a Wednesday, and then Mick Schaefer was on Wednesday, and he thought we were talking about something else, and he was like, Sam Mellinger says that I thought Mahomes was going to be amazing when he was in junior high and all that other stuff. And I'm like,
Fiction. That's
yeah.
This is fiction.
And I'm like, no, Mick, that's not what we're saying. We're saying moments
Time flies
along
when
the
you're
way.
having fun. I mean, it felt like a
Yeah.
week. It was 2 days. We're having so much fun.
Other than that, so have you seen it, Josh?
No, I have not.
Great, good for you. Let's play Fact or Fiction here.
Catch this if you can. Fact or fiction, Sterling? Podcasting is the hardest job in the world.
Fact. Travis Kelce said this. Didn't Travis Kelce say this?
Classic rookie mistake already for Sterling. I'm not going to clarify until after everyone submitted their answers. Dylan, fact or fiction, podcasting is the hardest job in the world.
I'll go fiction and replace it with quantum physics.
Okay.
I'm gonna go fact because Sterling said that Travis Kelce said it, so therefore, if Kelce says it, it's true.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
You
So
have
I
all the
shouldn't
little-
have
you
said
have
the
all the little things in
Kelce.
there,
That's
Dylan.
exactly
Yeah.
right.
You
Well,
got
I
it.
learned. See, either you win or you learn, and I learned there, and I won, so we're good.
Yeah, you got the point, and you got it correct. Travis Kelce has called podcasting, quote, the hardest job in the world. I think he was on another podcast, which just goes to show how difficult it really is.
His hour and 20-minute a week podcast is the most difficult job in the world,
Quote,
rather than
hardest
playing-
job in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what Travis Kelce said. You want to tell him he's wrong?
Ask a brain surgeon.
Well,
I
you
think
know what?
it's-
Everybody hates their job, just like Nikola Jokic said.
And Travis
Everybody-
Kelce's job is podcasting.
Everybody hates their job, and Travis Kelce hates podcasting, apparently.
Really, my job is playing football. Fact or fiction, Dylan? Orlando Brown Jr. did not say anything particularly wrong when he talked about Mahomes and Burrow's dropbacks. Chiefs fans are just tired of hearing from him.
I'll go fact.
I think that's a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
Stone cold fact. Do you have all little buttons in there, Dylan? There's little buttons for all this.
That is a fact.
There, yeah, you found the
Nailed
buttons.
it.
Inexplicable.
It's just a rotating cart. I
No,
think.
he was just saying that's a fact that he has buttons.
I'm just glad.
Wasn't using it as a fact for this.
Dylan has found all of the buttons. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
Love that.
I wish he'd have said fiction.
That would have actually been pretty good.
Damn it. All right, I go first on this one.
You go first on this one, Jason. Sterling is currently hearing fact or fiction for the first time.
That is a fact.
Sterling?
I think that's a fact.
Yes.
I think that's a fact.
Dylan?
That means I already.
Fact.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be fiction if he says
Yeah,
it.
I'm saying that's.
I could have maybe played a little bit of it for you, subliminally at some point. That could have
Sublime's
been
the name of the
fun.
band, actually, with Rome.
Yeah, I'm
Subliminally.
familiar. Right now, Dylan down a point because he doesn't believe that podcasting is the hardest job in the world.
Good for you, Dylan.
But fact or fiction, Sterling, the process is dead.
I had an intern
The-
I had an intern named Process. He was from Philadelphia. We called him Process. Now I'm just like, now I need to check on him.
Are we talking about the 76ers?
Hey, man.
Capital T, capital P, the process, lowercase I, lowercase d, is dead.
It's surprising, though. He texted me. He thought that that holding call should not have been called at that time.
Fiction. It's fiction because they got out of Doc Rivers. It's going to turn around.
Dylan?
I think with Embiid there, it'll always be fiction because he was the starting point of this.
Jason?
I would say the fact that they were it's not fact. I would say the fact that they were the number 1 seed this last year makes it fiction.
It's a fact. The process is dead.
It's not dead, Brisco. It's
Yeah.
not
It's dead. It's not the process
I
anymore.
lived there.
It's not the process
I
anymore.
lived there when they had 10 wins, and Robert Covington and Ish Smith and Isaiah Cannon
Nothing
were
wrong with
the
Ish Smith,
focal
man.
points.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that.
Embiid
but
is still there.
Yeah,
It's
he's still there,
fiction.
but it's not the process
Indeed.
anymore.
He is the process. His
Well,
name is the process.
Well, then
it's Joel the Process Embiid.
They could have stopped the process after drafting him, then ideally, right?
The name is Joel the Process Embiid.
Fact or fiction, Dylan?
My former intern Process also texted at one point that Jalen Hurts deserved the MVP, not Patrick Mahomes'
He's wrong.
regular season MVP.
So he's dead to you.
Well, he's from Philadelphia, so
Yeah,
I mean,
the
I expect
process
him to-
is dead. An intern process is dead to
I hope
Jason.
not. I need to check on him. It's
No,
been a while.
he's probably alive.
He hasn't responded to any of my texts since about February 15th. Weird.
How often do you text him?
Never.
Daily.
Every day. Are you still alive?
Hey, are you still with us? I'm just worried about the process.
Blank if you're still with us. And he didn't reply.
It's really annoying.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway.
not even a text.
Dylan,
fact or fiction? The Red Hot Royals will win at least one game over the Cleveland Guardians in this series. 3-game series.
I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna say fact.
That is a fact, Jack.
I'll go fact. Yeah, it's a fact.
It's a fact, everybody. We're giving wins away. Hey, nice poll.
What are the odds of that?
Probably like 1 in 8 or something. I don't know. 10. How many do we have back there? Still good. Fact or fiction from the silver screen, and the reason that I wasn't watching the NBA draft. Upon further thought, and potentially pending a second watch, Asteroid City is a top 3 Wes Anderson movie for me. Jason, fact or fiction? There are 11 Wes Anderson movies. I know you knew that, but for the audience.
No clue. Or I'll go fact.
Okay.
Even though
top 3. Top 3? Okay. Jason says fact.
So Brisco and I went to that movie. He kept
Jason-
trying to put his hand
Name dropper.
in my
Popcorn
popcorn.
bucket. Yeah. I just was hungry. My blood sugar was low.
I'm gonna go fact. I'm gonna go fact here.
Wow. Dylan?
Yeah, I'm gonna go fact as well. I think it was a good film.
It's a fact.
Wow, how about that? Okay, you tried to throw him off when you said top 3. Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah,
Nice.
I definitely did. Oh, does this mean that you and Sterling are tied now? I've got
we're
5-5-4.
Yeah, we're still tied.
Did you say
Okay,
fact
still
there?
been tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said
Then,
fact.
yeah, we're still tied.
Sterling and I both have 5. Dylan has 4.
I'm not even sure what number 3 is. It might be number 2, but I wanted to go top 3, so all the
Okay.
Wes Anderson heads in the audience won't, make me defend all of my takes too strongly right
That's
now.
how I feel about Jordan. Like top 3. I don't know. Might be number 2, but definitely top 3.
Definitely top 3, and that should be
Yeah,
good enough,
definitely
everybody.
top 3.
That should be good enough. Fact or fiction, Stu? Have you followed the College World Series Jello shot situation?
Yes. As a man who likes college sports and Jello shots, I'm all in.
It's a great marriage.
Well, so what I'm going to need, though, is this is a tough one, but the College World Series Jello shot game needs poll watchers to ensure that the shots can't count until they've been consumed. LSU finished with...
No, I'm saying fact. This is a fact. Like, come on. You can't...
I'm just going to give you the numbers.
I don't care about the numbers. It's a fact.
I
We
just
need
want to correct you real quick, Josh.
superb.
Yeah.
I just want to correct you real quick.
Correct me, please.
You said pole watchers. You mean acrobatic dancer watchers.
It's college sports, after all. That is a great correction.
Thank you.
Needs acrobatic dance watchers.
Thank you.
To ensure that the shots
was it
can't
Rick
count until they've been
Pitino?
consumed.
Who was the...
Oh, that was Jeff
that
Long,
was Jeff
baby.
Long,
That was
yeah.
right. That was
And
right here.
Snoop Dogg.
That was
No,
right here.
I
with
was
Snoop.
talking about, was it Louisville, the old Louisville coach? That
Oh,
was
yeah.
the whole...
Oh, the strippers and hookers in the
Yeah,
dorm
yeah.
room?
Oh, yeah.
that was Patino.
So, okay, I was being okay.
Where were
Absolutely.
you during all that, Jason?
Talking about it for 4 hours a day, every day, for 3 years.
Weirdly,
Well,
in
his
San Antonio,
defensive-
Texas. It was strange, but
His defensive game plan was get tips. So
10 seconds or less.
no one remembers his whole
It was the
defensive
offense.
philosophy, get tips?
Well, his was...
You made a joke, and I was like going to make another joke, and then you like
But get
interrupted
tips,
my
but
joke to try to like
tips.
joke over it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Right, but this is sort of goes hand in hand with that, is that his defensive philosophy will also get your hand on balls.
Hand in a lot of things.
I'm
Hands
going
on
fact. I'll go fact.
Dylan, just say it. Just say
Shoot
fact
your
or
shot
fiction.
also is one of the things that Rick,
Yeah,
Rick
go
believed
fact.
in shooting your shot.
Jason, fact or fiction? Do they need acrobatic dance watchers to ensure these shots don't count? Till they
Oh,
can
that's a
consume?
fact. Yeah, that's
totally
absolutely a fact. Yeah, that's an
100%
easy
fact.
fact. Yes.
LSU finished with 68,888 Jello shots.
What was the record? Like 23?
So it was. I think they broke it around 25, right?
Yeah.
Second place was Wake Forest this year with 7,622.
I believe Wake Forest actually consumed all 7,000 of those.
I kind of do too. I think that there's a chance. Look, again, if you want to have a billionaire benefactor come in and buy a bunch and then everyone in the bar does them, that's fine. I don't care who pays for it, but it can't count until it's consumed.
Agreed.
This is an easy
Totally
take.
agree.
Fact or fiction, the Royals will trade a major league position player sometime before the deadline.
Who's up?
We are
This
on
is,
an 8,
Dylan,
which is
right?
Dylan. Dylan, the Royals will trade a major league position player sometime before the deadline.
I'm going to go fact. Again, being optimistic.
I'm going to go fact as well.
Yeah, fact. You have a lot of guys. Olivares, Nicky Lopez.
See, Olivares and Lopez are the first two that pop into my mind when I think
Yeah.
of position players. Not Salvi, but Olivares and...
No, of guys who could be traded.
I know. No,
Whoa,
I'm saying...
hey,
like,
Salvi
yes.
could be traded,
Don't
man.
you
Look
dare.
at
I will
the
throw
internet.
hands with you.
Well, don't do that, but I do think you're all
yeah.
right. It's a fact. Everybody gets a point.
All right.
It's a
Everybody
fact.
gets a point. So Dylan has missed 2. Sterling and I just the 1. You got to make this tougher here.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. I thought I was going to provide at least. I thought at least Sterling would stumble, and he's just given away his advantage and has cheated off your answers. It's like being in
it's
school with him
ridiculous.
again.
Yes.
How have I cheated?
Fact or fiction, Jason? Donovan Smith will be on a short leash, pretty heavily splitting first team reps with Wanye Morris during training camp.
Oh, that's fiction.
Stu.
It's a fact.
Interesting.
It's
okay.
a fact, yeah.
You're a big fan of Boys to Men over there.
I'm a huge Wanye Morris fan, yeah.
Okay. You're thinking that maybe Donovan Smith's water is run dry?
Dylan.
I had to separate from Sterling here, maybe get a point back, so I would go fiction as well.
It's fiction.
It's fiction.
No, it's not.
I think the short lease part is fiction. I think Wanye Morris getting first team reps later in camp could be there, but I think this is Donovan Smith's job until unless he really bumps.
Because Donovan Smith has another year or 2 left. He's not just going to be down on bended knee throughout the entire year. Okay, it's not going to happen. And plus, you got to walk up to Donovan Smith, tell him to his face. You don't just do it in the still of the night to make that trade.
I think it could be like a Kyle Long situation. Maybe if he gets injured, then Trey Smith stepped in. But that's I think is probably the way it would go, not because of poor performance during training camp.
Yeah, and that's when he would say is, I'll make love to you. It's odd to say that. I don't know why they would do that.
Fact or fiction, Sterling? John Elway, I learned this today. Or maybe I didn't. John Elway won his MVP in a year where he played only 14 games, completed just 60% of his passes, threw for only 3,600 yards, and threw only 20 touchdowns with 10 interceptions. Fact or fiction? That was his MVP season, maybe.
That's a fact because NFL people they loved John Elway back then. Didn't deserve it.
By the way, who got the points on that previous one? It was me and Dylan.
You and Dylan. You're up 2 on Sterling.
No,
Dylan.
1 on me.
Dylan. Yeah. Sorry, Jason. You're up 1 on both of them
Yeah,
now.
that's right. I'm leading. Okay, very good. And that's where the odds people are like, we're going to win the
This is exactly
anyway, Dylan, you're up.
Line. Fact or fiction on the Elway stats?
I'm going to go fact just because there's so many stats there.
I'm going to go fact because the way that you said it, you were so incredulous of this happening that, that's a fact.
Listen here, you mother bleepers. It's fictional, but not for the reasons you think.
Oh, okay. Wow,
he played 12 games.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Completed less than 55% of his passes. He threw 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for less than 3,200 yards. And the NFL said that's our most valuable player. I was floored by that.
Well, who finished second?
I don't know.
Matt Schaub is kicking rocks right now saying I would have been an MVP in that era.
Jerry Rice had, I believe, he had 22 receiving touchdowns that year and another one on the ground. He was second in MVP voting.
Yeah, I'd go that.
Matt Leinart would have had a chance.
Believe that. It is a Matt Leinart stat line.
Baker Mayfield's like, if only.
If only I had played in 1990, whatever year that was, 87.
And judging by Jerry Rice interviews, I imagine he's very okay with not getting that MVP award that season.
Totally fine with it. No big deal at all.
Similar category, but a different angle here. And this one I really wanted to run by you, Jason. Is this going to be right, or is it going to? We're going to all find out together. But fact or fiction? Jim Harbaugh had more NFL rushing yards than Bo Jackson. Dylan, fact or fiction?
I have to say fiction just because I feel like answering fact is just insane.
You're like on principle alone?
Yeah, on principle alone.
I'm going to say fact.
I got to try and catch back up to Jason, so I'll say fiction.
It's a fact.
Fact.
Jim Harbaugh ran for 2,787 yards in the NFL. That's regular season, but the playoffs also work out. And Bo Jackson, 5 fewer yards in the regular season. Harbaugh had him beat by about 40 in the postseason. That's crazy. Could have given me a million years to think up that one.
So I'm up by 2 with only 1 to play, so therefore I've already won.
This 12th one's worth 2 points. Fact or fiction, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather go to space than into the deep ocean.
That's a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
You can't.
You can't. If you guys say
fiction.
fact,
He's
but
lying.
if you guys
Fiction,
say
but I don't lose by 4.
Well, but
you don't.
Nah, you know
understand.
what? Fiction.
Just
Yeah,
say
but
fiction.
fiction.
It's so
Fiction.
stupid. It's a subjective question at the end, so he can.
It's a fact.
That's a fact.
Oh, really?
Worth minus 2 points. That's really weird. So now it's 7 to 7 to. The math on this one's really confusing, but we're gonna need
Hold
a
on.
tiebreaker.
The winner got negative points there.
Yeah, that was one you're supposed to get wrong. It's like a video game where you're supposed to lose to a boss before you beat it. You're supposed to get that one wrong.
I'll take your word for it. I'm going to go ahead and count that as 10 to 7 to 7. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and the tiebreaker, which apparently is worth 4.
The tiebreaker is really, really important because here's the situation, fellas.
You know what? I'm going to give both Sterling and Dylan the point on that because we
They
talked
did
them.
want
and
it.
They wanted fact for that. So it's now 10 to 8 to 8. Tiebreaker is now only worth 3 points.
I have, 10 to 8. That's fine. 3-point tiebreaker here, at least 2.5. We got to see where the odds makers end up. We got to be careful because Vegas is watching this one. So
2.1 point
good
tiebreaker.
Good point. This
What's
is
the
a
category?
2.5-point tiebreaker. The category is backyard barbecue. I want to give you the break to think about this one. You're building a backyard barbecue. You get 1 beverage, 1 protein, 1 side, and 1 artist's musical catalog playing in the speakers in the corner of the yard. Who you got?
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm Dr. Andrew Palmisano, a fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon with Acentus Healthcare. Acentus now has orthopedic surgery and sports medicine. Myself and Drs. E.J. Wilkinson and Nick Aberly are available for all of your orthopedic needs. Come see our state-of-the-art clinics during our walk-in hours featuring same-day and next-day appointments, Monday through Friday in Leawood and on Parallel Parkway in Kansas City. Call 913-395-0294, 913-395-0294 to book your appointment at Acentus Healthcare today.
The Zone is brought to you by Google Fiber, award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees.
The wait is over. Marijuana is now legal and available in Missouri to anyone over 21. And just like medical cannabis, the best resource for recreational marijuana is Relief Resources Dispensary. Experienced users will be blown away by our selection of over 600 products. And if you're trying marijuana for the first time, our famous patient care specialists can answer all your questions. They've even curated a special selection to make it easier to find the experience you're looking for. Good news for medical card patients, too. Unlike some dispensaries, Relief Resources Dispensary is not raising prices in anticipation of a shortage. We've stocked up and will even have a designated register exclusively for our medical patients. You can also save time ordering ahead online and using the drive.
backyard barbecue. I need a beverage, a protein, a side, and the music playing in the background to know I'm going to attend one of your guys' backyard barbecues here. I'm going to send the whole audience.
He's not going to attend mine, I bet.
Depends on what you got out there.
Well, you're not invited. So.
Well, okay. I will attempt to attend one of these barbecues.
So who's going to go first, and do we do all 4 of them, or do we do one at a time?
Yeah, I think just rattle off your all parts, one person at a time. So Sterling, what's your ideal barbecue here?
So my protein is a filet mignon medium rare. My side is grilled corn because if I'm going to be on a grill, what's the best side? It's grilled corn. We will be listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers, probably more of the Mother's Milk album, although we can veer into Californication if we would like. And then we will be crushing a bleep ton of Busch Light. I thought some Woodford Reserve Double Barrel Oak, but I thought, you know what? A little hot outside.
Could be.
Might be a little hot outside. What a way to cool off with an ice-cold Busch Light.
There you go.
Dylan, what's your barbecue?
My barbecue is going to be brisket. It's going to be a pasta salad as a side. It's going to be a lot of ranch water, which is a tequila seltzer, so that if you are trying to not feel bloated with a bunch of beer, you can also get a little buzz going. And the music is Def Leppard.
Okay, so mine, the protein is going to be brisket, which you can also make burnt ends with. So I got 2 things there. My side is corn on the cob because it can be portable, so you can do those things. It's still corn on the grill, but it's corn on the cob though. The music is obviously Boys to Men being played in the background. Wanya is invited as well, and the drink is I'm providing the food. BYOB, you cheap. Mother bleepers.
Okay.
You got brisket, you got corn on the cob. I'm presenting the music. Plus, I don't know what alcohol you like.
Yeah.
Bring whatever the hell you want.
I can bring my little
BYOB
case of Boulevard grapefruit unfiltered wheat, which, by the way, if people at Boulevard are listening, you just hook me up forever. That's all I ever want.
Southwest Boulevard Lager. I'm switching mine up.
Whoa,
Southwest Boulevard Lager. That was so good.
Too late. All right, Josh, who wins? Just go ahead and say me. It's fine.
Well, Sterling opening with a filet mignon for like a little backyard barbecue. Outskis. I don't want your Busch Light, and I don't want your. I don't trust you to cook this filet mignon.
Busch Light and filet mignon medium rare.
Not from you.
That is a combo from the gods.
I don't trust yours.
Typical the connection there.
It's
what
a weird
you pair
one.
With?
Yeah, it's a weird pairing, and I don't love it.
I just had it 2 weekends ago.
The restaurant comes by and says, "Might I suggest with a filet mignon this?" And then shows a Busch Light over the napkin on the arm. But anyway, go ahead, Dylan.
I like where Dylan ended up. Def Leppard's a pretty interesting choice. The little tequila seltzer's pretty good. But I also like bringing my own drinks. And you want to bring a little diet. And I definitely think a little Boys to Men barbecue. At that point, it's a barbecue to boys to barbecue men, men to barbecue boys. I guess I'm going, finally, I'm going over to Jason's house. What time should I be there?
Ooh, we're actually busy that day.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad.
Sorry
Well,
about that.
Dylan, I guess I'm coming to your barbecue.
Firework Mania Superstore is now open with a huge selection at the best prices. 3 miles south of Olathe on Highway 160.